6 o'clock. All right, this is Community Business Development. This is Tuesday, November 13th, 2018. We're at 6 p.m. I have Councilor DeFlorio.
Here.
I have Councilor Capone. I have Councilor McKinnon.
Here.
We have 3 members present. We do have a quorum.
3 members present. We do have a quorum. If we could please stand and salute the flag and have the audience join us, if you like. The clerk,
All right.
please read the only item on the agenda.
The only item on the agenda. This is a resolution offered by Councilor Matusky and Councilor Simonelli that Vito's Auto correct its operation.
Do we have anybody here from Vito? Yeah. Is anybody here from Vito's Auto Repair? No, you're the residents. Would anybody like to come up and, oh, there's not a public
Yeah,
mo,
it's not
oh,
a
that's
public.
right.
The owner's not here?
Is the owner here?
We have our city clerk before us?
I have a motion to invite the city clerk, and I do have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Yes.
Can you update us on this, please?
So
What's going on?
the property owner should be here. I did
know
speak to
from
him
the,
this
past-
morning.
I know from the past meetings that we've had on this, we were waiting for some type of action.
Correct. So just so you know, the owner of the property, Mr. Amati, did come into my office approximately 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon, and if you see on your desk, issued a court order for a, you have it in front of you.
You want it?
Thank you. An eviction notice for the tenant. This afternoon, like I said, approximately 2 or 3 o'clock. So he has began the eviction process. He did state that he would be here because I know the committee still wanted to ask some questions. The neighbors were invited up by my office because we've had issues, going forward now, probably about 3-4 months and even longer than that. But I've been looking at it for the last few months because some of the abutters have had issues with the
Mr. Clerk,
the
if you could
tenant.
just, after we're done, can you just explain to them that we have to notify the papers? and
Yeah, it's not a
the
public
committee
hearing. I
has
mean,
to
if you'd-
actually have
if you'd like to, yeah.
Public hearing at that point when we do that. That's the reason why you just can't come up tonight.
So they were invited so they could understand what was going on, to express, be able to discuss with you afterwards, if you'd like, to their issues with what's going on.
Was he planning on attending tonight?
Yeah, like I said, I only spoke to him 3 or 4 hours ago. He was in my office. He knew the time, he was invited, but he did want to come and give me the eviction notice and state that they are in court in a couple weeks to start that process. I know I showed it to the committee. The neighborhood has been plagued with issues with this property. The landlord, the property owner, currently subleases it, so it's not the landlord's actions, it's the tenant's actions, but the landlord is the licensee. He subleases it, so it is his license, so he is very worried about it and wants to correct the action. That's why you've seen in front of you this eviction notice.
On that, I have questions of him, but maybe you might be able to enlighten us.
Yeah,
If
I'm
you could.
sure.
But we've stated violations that we wanted corrected. We've also stated licenses that may be pulled if
Mhm.
they're not corrected. That's only for a monetary aspect of it.
Yep.
Where's the rest of,
The
he's got it for, one second, yeah. So if he.
So, yeah, he's
actually
evicting him.
gets his money, then they can go back in there if it never happened, right? And then it would be up to us to take care of it.
That's how he's evicting him, right? Because that would be the easiest way to evict him is through I would say, I don't know if the attorney has any clue, but I mean, I would say that's the easiest way, rather than going the other route and hearing our side. He knows he owes him 2 months back rent, so you can go right to court and, that's cause for eviction, you know?
My question,
Is if they pay it, they come back. And I don't have that answer. I would say, yeah, they're gonna continue to operate, right? So, but then it is still in our hands
so at that point,
to
we
act.
pull the license if they continue.
Yeah, there's a process, don't forget, we can't just pull it. We have the authority to start a procedure. There is public hearings involved, because we have to do it in accordance with state law and our ordinances. But, yes, we
How long,
have the authority to do
Just
so.
for FYI, for the residents, the viewing public will say, how long would that take?
You have to post a public hearing in accordance with the law, which is at least 14
Yep.
days. Give all the abutters in the area within 150 feet to 300 feet in the area a letter to let them
Sure.
come up and be able to
I just-
express
I'm-
their
I'm
issues.
asking you
Yeah, no,
because
I'm
you
giving you the
know,
whole
and I want them
process.
to know.
Then you'd have to state all the reasons, you'd have to get any violations they received, any, documentation either from the landlord or from my office, neighbors, abutters. And then you could, start the proceeding. You'd listen to both sides also. You'd have to allow the tenant and the property owner up here.
The tenant won't show up, so
Yep.
it would be one side.
But you have to allow them that opportunity. And then, yes, you can either pull the license or, revoke the license. But they also have the right also to appeal that, just like anything. There's an appeals process to anything that we do, either through our municipal officer or through the courts.
While we're in that process, correct?
That's correct. I would still double-check with the legal team downstairs, but I'm quite confident that, yes, we're correct. We don't have to allow them to operate. I'm even allowed to issue an immediate cease and desist order for a short term,
Sure.
which,
So I'm going to
we haven't
ask your
done yet.
professional opinion, Mr. Clerk.
yes.
On this right here, what do you think? We should wait for the attorneys to go through with this, or should we start the process?
My opinion is
Yeah, I want your
you
opinion.
should see what happens on the 29th. Again, I'm not an attorney, but I would wait till the 29th, see what happens. If the eviction process moves forward, then we're in good shape. We don't have to worry about starting all the other process. If
Okay.
it does not, then we can start our revocation process at that time. That's just my opinion.
And
That's not a...
once again, for the time frame on it, again, how
It's,
long would
so
it be?
say the 29th it comes back and the court has decided that, yeah, we're going to allow Mr. Amati to go forward with the eviction process. We're fine. If not, then we would post it, if I get notice immediately, depends on how fast I get the notice, and Mr. Hamadi has been pretty good about letting me know what goes on. We could post it early December. We could have it on the agenda in the middle of December, because we can always do a special meeting.
Good.
And
So we can
that's-
have these people have a good Christmas, is that what you're telling me?
yeah, that's the hope, right? I mean, and just so you know, I feel very bad. I've talked to a few of the residents, especially some of the direct abutters next door. They've
Yeah.
been in multiple times, showed me,
That's on
pictures and
Villa, right?
videos
Villa
and et cetera. The tenant tried to fix a few things, and I'll give him that much credit. A few things have got a little bit better, but overall, there's more issues than there is improvement, right? So that's the problem. Yeah, they've cleaned up next door to one of the property owners a little bit. There's less trash, less mess, but there's a lot of confrontation, which is unacceptable, in my opinion. Fighting with neighbors, yelling at neighbors, whether they're right or you're right, that's not the right way to do it. And there is a recent confrontation over the last few weeks. We had a police report. Mr. Rigucci discussed it with me and one of the tenants.
Do we have that before?
I have it. If it's not in the file, I have it in my office. But they didn't write it the way it probably happened. Am I correct? So it didn't show anything as egregious as it probably was, because the way it was written. So
Need
I
to send some of these guys back to writing school?
yeah, that could be why the assistant city clerk didn't submit it into the file. But know that I have continually gone by. I have talked to at least a couple of the neighbors, and Dave Rigucci has also. We've been in very good contact with the property owner. I have to give him at least some credit, because he's tried.
He's doing what he said he
He's the
would do.
landlord. He's trying. He knows there's an issue. He has admitted it and has tried to work with my office, and I believe the neighbors. He owned the property for maybe 5 or 6 years now. This tenant has only been there a year or two, maybe 2 years, and Mr. Hamadi operated there prior, and from what I know, there weren't many issues, and this is Mr. Hamadi here, if you want to invite him up.
So moved.
Motion to have Mr. Amati before?
Aye.
Mr. Amati?
Just let me tell him,
Okay,
just state your name and address when you sit down first, and then they'll ask you some questions,
Yes,
okay?
good afternoon.
Just state your name and address.
My name is Ali Hamadi. I am the owner of the garage at 142 Ferry Street.
Yeah.
And I live in Medford at 21 Maybury Avenue in Medford.
Mr. Amati, just a quick thing here. I know that you had started the process.
Yes, I did start the process.
I showed that to him.
And I have my own issue with
It's a monetary one?
yes, with Abraham Collin,
Yep.
which called Veto Shop. And I be going to court on the 29th of this month.
Okay.
And I did address other issues also between him and
They're not mentioned?
the neighborhood.
They're not mentioned, though, to your attorney on that piece of paper? How come?
This one, no.
Okay.
No, but we did send him a certified letter addressing the issue of the neighborhood and myself.
Okay. And my question is, so
Yes,
if the remedy is to actually monetary damage, if they in fact pay the monetary damage on the 29th, what are you going to do then?
no, I will continue proceed with issues that have been addressed by the city of Everett and the neighborhood. I will proceed.
I mean, in
It is,
a past report that
it
we
is
had-
correct, but this was recommended by my attorney to start it that way.
Sure. I mean, it's probably the best route to go.
Y-
You get a
yes,
good attorney.
exactly.
I know the attorney.
No?
so he's a good-
Yes, yes, this is
But,
how my
uh,
attorney addressed it.
Learned of the neighborhood's concerns and complaints through the letters he had received from a local resident as well as the city clerk's office. That's you received letters from
I did,
the neighborhood, you also received
from
them
me.
from the city clerk, so,
that's correct.
okay. So now we have those issues as well that we have to deal with down there.
Yes,
Okay. So it's just not a monetary issue, it's the violations as well, it's a compilement of these letters, it's the harassment of the neighborhood. These neighbors are up here, they want some type of relief.
every single issue will be addressed.
Okay. All right.
Like I said, he has been very receptive, so
No, I know.
anytime
He's
I've called
started the
him,
progress already.
he's tried to do something, so I have to give him that much credit.
I'm all set.
Thank you. Counsel Capone?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Through you to our guest. Thank you very much for taking the steps to start the process. When you were here a couple of months ago.
Yes, I was.
I think you got the message loud and clear that this committee was not happy with the way the business was being conducted in the neighborhood and what appeared to be total disrespect for the residents and the community. Even some of our representatives, city clerk and assistant clerk went down like, who are you, who cares? That's not the way we do business, and I understand that you understand that. So I do appreciate you starting the process. I share a couple of concerns that Council McKinnon has with regards to the complaint. This is the summons and complaint, and it talks about non-payment of rent.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if there is an underlying complaint that talks about the issues in the neighborhood, or if it was just limited to this. And I know that you were following advice, and I'm not going to second-guess anyone's advice, but this talks about monetary damages to you, a tenant who hasn't paid rent. Our concern had nothing to do with rent. Our concern had an operator who was violating several ordinances in the city, was causing chaos in the neighborhood. So that's what our concerns are. Now, if this goes forth to trial, and one other thing I'll point out, I don't want to get you nervous, but one other thing that could be a problem, just a quick look at this, the date that they have listed in here for them to report is 2013 instead of 2018. So
Say it again, please.
on this complaint,
Yes.
it says to show at a hearing November 29th, which is the correct day, 2013, not 2018. It's kind of noticed when I looked at it. However, down below, it corrects it and says 2018.
Yes.
So I don't know if the attorney for the defendant's going to get cute.
I
and
really
say it was
haven't,
13,
you figured
but-
it out before me, but I will address it
Yeah,
to
I
the
just
attorney.
saw it. As soon as I saw it, it's the first thing I saw.
Yes, I
But that's beside the point. I think you'll be fine, they'll go forward. The problem is, if this individual tenders the rent that's past due, he now made you whole. So as far as the court's concerned, there's no more issue. And you can raise the issue at that time, well, there's all these problems in the neighborhood, but unless that was part of your official complaint to the court, they don't have jurisdiction to hear that. So it might turn out that this is going to have to be a second shot. I don't know what was put for an underlying complaint. So it might all be covered. This might just be a summary on the
Yes.
top.
Yes.
So I hope it is just a summary.
I will explain that to you, Your Honor. All the issue that been addressed by the city council will be addressed in the court. But my attorney just filed it on Friday, and I did not get chance to see him. But I went into detail about the original complaint from the city of Everett with my attorney, and he confirmed with me that they are in the complaint.
Okay,
But he did confirm.
okay,
the
good.
body
In,
of the
in case they did not, he did not address them, or the court did not accept them, I will definitely go for second attempt.
Okay. So
Because
thi-
I do have my own issue with him also, which is much bigger than the neighborhood, let me say
Right.
it this way.
Okay.
I just,
Right.
it's a red line for me.
Yeah, and that's a personal issue with you, a contractual business relationship between you and him. And we, quite honestly, I don't wish you any ill will with that, but
Yes.
that's not our concern. Our concern is the neighborhood.
No,
Our concern is the
absolutely,
resident.
absolutely.
So from our perspective, we want a business owner who's going to be a good neighbor. We're very pro-business in this community, and we'll give every business individual an opportunity.
I know.
But
I
if
would
you
say
have
thank
someone's going to
yes.
go in there and cause utter chaos in the neighborhood, that's something that we can't have. And I know that you're doing what you can in order to address that, but what I'm going to ask we do afterwards, I'll make this motion afterward, I'm going to ask that we hold this in committee, and if you could report back to us what happened on the 29th when you went to court, and that way we'll see where we're at. And it may be that we as a community need to step up our efforts and do what we have to do. But I
Absolutely.
do appreciate you starting the process.
No, I start the process, and I will continue the process until I get to our point, not my point.
Okay.
Until I get to our point, and
Sure.
I will update you
Okay,
about this. It's only a matter of time. What the attorney told me, it should be by the end of the year.
okay.
We should have a good answer, but even if I take another month or
Yeah.
two, I
So-
will. I want to continue the process.
So I appreciate it. When you were here 2 months ago, you said that you were going to take matters in your own hands.
And you did.
You have done that. So you
Yes.
did what you said you were going to do. And now, hopefully, when you go to court at the end of the month, this issue will be resolved. It'll be a non-issue for all of us. If it isn't, then either collectively, individually, however we have to do it, we're going to have to step up additional efforts. But
No
I do
problem.
appreciate what you've done.
Thank you.
So I
Thank
don't
you
have any
for
other
giving me
questions.
the
Thank
chance
you.
to address the problem with my tenants whenever, and I will take care of it.
I have a question from the chair. Oh. The question is, okay, the property is, the license is under Mr. Amati, is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
It's under the name Vito's, but he is the license holder.
He's the license holder.
Yeah, the DBA is
So,
Vito's.
we can still take the license away and then give it back when they're gone. Because this is crazy that the neighbors have to put up with this. The 29th, then December. Okay, this guy is not following the rules. Shut him down for 24 hours. And then give it to him again, then keep shutting him down. I mean, I know that's an expense to the city, but enough is enough. Obviously, Mr. Marty, unfortunately, based on the license that you've given him, whatever he's doing there, whatever he's fixing, you're not making any money on that anyways, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, plus you're losing the rent, so we're not hurting you. We don't want to hurt you. I understand you're doing everything right, and we appreciate good business people in the city. He's not a good business person, but we're not blaming you. Just because you rent to someone, it doesn't mean that's not a good person. It doesn't mean it's your fault. So I certainly don't want to put the blame on you. But I want to hit this guy in the pocket, whether it's for 2 days. Shut him down for 2 days.
That's within your authority.
I will.
To give them, sorry, to
I-
give them days, you could do that.
Okay, I will answer your question, Your Honor. I will say, give us a chance up to 3 months. 3 months. But
That's
I
not
am
fair
going
to the
court.
neighbors. It's not fair, sir. They've
Yes.
put up with a lot. It's just not fair to them. Not even 3 hours is enough. It's just not fair to them.
Just, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, Council McKinnon.
Sir,
Yes.
we've given you the time to file.
You did, you
We
did.
Respectfully, we said, we gave you the time to do that. You did it, which is a great thing. What I think, and I don't want to speak for her, the chairwoman is saying is, you're not receiving any monetary figures from these people anyway. If we shut them down to make them go away and give the hint that we're not going to stick up for it any longer, we're not going to put up with this no more, it's not going to impact you, sir. It's going to impact them.
I got it.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's an option we can do. So,
Okay, can we have a chance until we go to the court, see what will happen in the 29?
I'm sorry, Council McKinnon.
Yes.
From my understanding is the tenant just walked in, but before we invite the tenant up, I have Councilor Hanlon that put up his hand before you, and I apologize for not recognizing him. So, Councilor Hanlon?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You know, the complaint we're talking about, I know what you think it is.
Yes.
But this complaint is more than 20 years old. I know that you are not responsible for it, but when I read this, the first time I read this,
Yes.
I thought it was something funny. Because of the fact, I thought it was an old piece of paper that got mixed in with our paper, because it was the exact same wording. Racing up and down the street, parking on the wrong side, making too much noise, making after hours. The same exact complaints that were going on. Now, I know it's not you, it's not even those guys, but it's something on that property that's allowed to go on. That's your fault. You're the owner of the property. You have to take care of it. We shouldn't even be here. And those guys shouldn't have been there either. They should have been long gone. So I'm blaming you, because you're a landlord, maybe a good one, but not good for these people in this neighborhood. And I was talking to our clerk today, and I told him about it too, that these exactly word for word, that I saw more than 20 years ago. It was a long, long time ago. It's when I was an alderman. That's like the old dark ages. So those things were still going on. You have to correct it. And I don't care what the court says or anything, but you have to correct it. And I'm blaming you for this whole process, not the neighbors, not even the tenants. That's your job, it's your place, it's your business. You have to correct it.
I
And
will.
that's where I want it to go.
I will.
But you're not.
I've been
I mean,
trying.
This complaint should have never come here. It should have never been anywhere. Those people shouldn't have had to come up here. Because they've been here for ages and ages. I recognize the young lady in the front row. She's been here with the same exact complaint, same exact words, am I right? Same exact identical words. So you got to take care of it.
I will.
And I'm going to be looking for you, not anyone else, not this board, not anybody, but you. It's your responsibility.
Okay. I will.
Okay, we'll see. Thank you.
What's your pleasure, councilors?
Before we do that, I have a question for for the clerk.
For the clerk, sure. Go ahead, Councilor Capone.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Through you to the clerk.
Yes.
As you know, we were here 2 months ago, and some of the concerns that we had were work being performed after hours, work being done on the street, vehicles being raced up and down the surrounding streets, basically the havoc in the neighborhood. Has any of that improved?
So I've driven by, we've definitely seen less working, the cars outside on the sidewalk and in the street. As I go by, I don't live there, I don't see it all day, but I drive by pretty much every day as many times as I can. So that's definitely got better. I know we've had still issues and complaints about the speeding up and down, and I don't want to just blame it only on them, because I'm sure general cars still do that, but they've had issues with that. And the interactions with the neighbors is probably some of the biggest concerns. I don't know if it's the tenant himself or some of his workers, with their interaction with some of the neighbors.
So-
And that's something
Sounded
that's
like
been
you even said
happening.
it was an altercation, where the police had to come down.
Correct. So those are the issues that I'm still getting complaints on. The police do checks more than on occasion, They drive by during the day, late at night. I know that the neighbors have complained still that they're working later than their hours on Saturday, and sometimes even during the week. And the police have noticed some of this also, as of more recently. But other than that, I mean, they've cleaned up a little bit. So like I said, there's been some pros, right? I've driven by the side yard, which I really requested needed to be cleaned. They've taken action on that pretty much immediately. It looks a lot better than it was. It was a mess. It was in disarray. So there are a few things they've done good, and then some of the things I'm still hearing complaints both from the neighbors driving by and noticing some stuff, and from the police department. So, like I said, it's a little bit of both, but I'd say I'm hearing more complaints than I've seen
Improvement.
improvement.
Okay.
But I drive by every day, but not,
Okay.
I don't sit there all day long. Myself or David drive by daily.
Okay.
But definitely the work outside has looked like it's ceased.
Okay.
No cars outside and things like that.
All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions for Clerk.
Yeah.
Tenants can.
Unfortunately, if anybody wasn't invited, you're not able to speak. So the tenant, because once we open it up, we have to open it up also to the neighbors. And that needs to be advertised as a public hearing, because some neighbors are not here and it wouldn't be fair. So,
I was called, approximately 2 weeks ago, and I was invited to come here. I was invited,
he was invited, okay.
I was invited, Mr.
So you're clarifying that he was invited? Okay, so if we have a motion to bring you up.
So moved.
He was invited, I'm sorry for the confusion. Yep.
Yes?
And just hit that little button.
All in favor? All opposed? If you could please state your name and address for the record and speak right into the mic,
Let it go?
sir.
Good afternoon, good evening, City Council. My name is Abraham Colon. I am the owner of Vito's Shop, the owner of the matter that's going on in here. Approximately 2 weeks ago, I got a phone call because I was aware of the situation before it was even brought up to you guys. Ever since I moved into the neighborhood, I've been having a lot of clashes with the neighbor, a lot of false accusation, and from my understanding, there's been problems in the neighborhood before I even moved in. I'm originally from Jamaica Plain. I was prior in Revere for 12 years before I moved to Everett. Sometime about 2.5 months ago, I had some neighbors come down to the business and state, hey Vito, do you know that your next door neighbor is going door to door saying this about you that is not true? And I was not aware. I said, it's okay, not a problem, let it proceed. You know, I have a right to speak my mind too. Approximately about a week after, I stopped out and I sat down with Sergio, and I sat down in his office, explained to him what's going on in the neighborhood. I've been in business 20 years, since I was 19 years old. I always worked for myself. So I come from a neighborhood, my business comes from a neighborhood where it's exactly the same scenario with I am now. I'm surrounded by tenants, I'm surrounded by neighborhoods. I was brought up in a way where the way my mother raised me is you take care of your neighbor take care of you. I didn't move into the neighborhood to be fighting with Rita every day. I didn't move into the neighborhood to fight with Joe every day. If there's a problem as an adult, hey, listen, this is going on. Cool, I'll take care of it, not a problem. But the problem I had with Rita was she would come every day to the business in front of my customers, screaming at me like I'm her child. Miss, if you had a problem, pull me aside, talk to me. Hey, not a problem. I addressed the issue. It is not Mr. Ali's fault. I just walked in and I heard, oh, this problem is going on for the neighborhood for 20 years. Yes, it's true. When I moved in, the problem in the neighborhood is not even myself. There's always traffic on Ferry Street. So people speed by on Villa Ave, cutting up to take a shortcut to Broadway. Rita has never seen me personally run up Villa Street. Joe has never seen me physically in my own vehicle speed up the way. It's always people who cut by Villa Ave to reach Broadway because there's always traffic on Ferry Street. So it's not fair to me that I'm the new tenant in the location to get blamed for things that's not even under my control. We had an issue, she speaks about, oh, Vito, Don't park cars in front of my house. I don't. If somebody pulls up looking for services, the location between Ferry Street and right in front of Rita's house is a no standing zone. As soon as I see somebody pull up, move it. Even my landlord, who's Mr. Ali, he pulls up sometimes. I say, Ali, move the car. Joe, he swings by every day, says, how you doing,
Chairman,
good morning.
If I could, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but whereas these individuals aren't going to be able to speak, rather than refer
I'm
to them by
sorry.
name,
I
can
like to
you
speak
please
clearly.
say, I understand, can you please say
Clearly.
residents in the neighborhood and neighbors, because they don't have the opportunity to address it, so I don't want, in that
Cool,
way,
no, I'm sorry.
whatever
but,
your issues are, go ahead and raise them, we'll hear them, and we'll go from there. Thank
so,
you, Chairman.
again, I'm the new guy in the neighborhood, so guess what? Let's attack this guy. When I first moved into the neighborhood, I introduced to my neighbor. I said, hi, how you doing? I am such and such. I come from Revere. I just sold my business in Revere and thought about growing because I was about to retire. But Mr. Ali has his property for rent for numerous months, and I said, you know what? Let me try this one more time, you know? I've been in business 20 years. I said, you know what? I was going to move to California. I have an 18-year-old that was still going to school. So I said, you know what? Let me lease this property for a few years until my son graduates, and then I can make a decision what to do with my life. The very first thing that came out my neighbor's mouth, you know, she was cool. Oh, this, and that. Cool, not a problem, miss. Next thing you know, the smart remarks. Oh, he's a charmer. He's this, he's that. There's no need for that. You know,
Sir, are you on the property all the time?
I'm on the property 24/7. I'm properly dressed because, you know, this is my first time in here. I could have came right after work and my hands are full of grease. I'm there every day, 8:30 to.
But do you know what violations I don't want to hear anything about your neighbors or what's going back and forth, because like Council Capone said, it's not fair they're unable to speak, okay? Because we didn't invite them up. So if this keeps going on, then we'll just ask for another hearing, and we will invite all the neighbors up. But this is not, we're not here to go back and forth.
I understand.
Have you addressed all the other issues? Has the clerk given you the issues that need to be addressed? Okay, the speeding you're saying is not yours, you can't prove that it's yours. But all the other issues, have you addressed them?
Yes. My next door neighbor, one's on one side, the other one's on the other side, when she received a notice of what was going on, that I'm being accused of speeding up and down the street, that I drive an F-350 and my truck barely fits that road. I'm in the property every day, 8:30 in the morning to about 6:30 in the afternoon. Yes, there are some times that
But besides the speeding, you're not following the rules of the hours you're supposed to be open.
when I moved in, I had never received the guidelines to the licensing that my landlord had. Never. The person who came down to me and issued me the rules was this gentleman right here on my right-hand side.
Okay, so when he gave you the rules, have you been following them?
Yes, I have.
Is that true, Mr. Clerk?
No, it's not true.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I personally have not seen him work after the hours, but I have been called that he has. So, personally, no, I have not. As I stated before, I'm there, I come in during the day a little bit, I have gone by at night, and checked. The nights that I've gone by, I haven't seen it. So, the alleged allegations isn't that he does it every night. On occasion, here a night or two, that he works later on Saturday especially, he works past I don't know if the license is noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So they're saying he's working later. I personally haven't seen it, but I have got multiple calls that he is working later, so.
Okay, so I'm going to have the councils ask you questions instead of you going on, because some things need to be addressed. Councilor McKinnon.
Sir, what are your hours of operation?
I'm-
Days?
I'm there every day, 9 to 6, and honestly, Monday to Friday, I'm there 9 to 6. And yes, 6 o'clock, I shut down. Just because my lights aren't inside my office does not mean I'm open for business. Sometimes you guys work here 9 to 6 o'clock, and sometimes you gotta stay in your office to clean your desk or finish some paperwork. Just because I'm standing on my desk and my light's on does not mean the business is open for business. People will knock on my door, sorry, I'm closing till tomorrow, because I'm finishing paperwork, I am sweeping, I'm picking up the trash. So, the definition of me staying late working the cars is not true. Do I stay in the facility? Yes, sometimes I sit at 7 o'clock, I sweep the street. I pick up the trash around, and I organize myself for the next day. Just because my light is on does not mean the business is open for business. There is time that I do sit at my desk because guess what? I am the owner, and I am the man employee who does all the work. Sometimes I don't have time to organize myself and organize my paperwork, organize my receipts, and call my customers up. I don't have time for that. 6 o'clock I shut down. If I have this paperwork right here in front of me, then you know what? It's 6:30. I am putting this in order because tomorrow's another day. But just because I'm sitting in my office and my light's on does not mean my business is still open for business. I respect the law, I respect the neighborhood, and I respect my neighbors.
All right, another question. Do you fix cars on the outside of your property?
No, sir, I do not work.
Hood up outside your property?
I've had a hood up to, for instance, Mr. Elise bring his taxi, and the battery's dead, the car's in front of the facility. I open the hood, I jumpstart the car, and I bring it inside my facility. I come from Revere, and the same rules that apply to me in Revere apply over here too. I know more than to be working on a car on the street. That is against the law, anywhere. Doesn't matter if it's Revere, Everett, Jamaica Plain, wherever that, it's against the law. So I do not work on vehicles outside my premises. The city clerk came one day, he was watching me, and I was in my driveway repairing a little something. He said, oh, you cannot work in your driveway. I didn't know that, but I was not in the street. This accusation that Vito's working on cars on the street is not true. I'd never, ever work on a vehicle on the street because I know the rules. And if I open a hood on the street, I'm trying to get a booster pack because the battery's dead. And I don't think it's against the law that for you to open a hood on a car in the middle of the street to give it a jump start. It's working on the street. I'm sorry, but it's the honest truth.
Fair enough. And then the other question that I have is, when our city clerk and our assistant city clerk came down there, was there any type of exchange of wording? Notified you of who they were?
I was not in the facility. I was actually picking up parts, and my older cousin was in the facility, and he didn't know what was going on. I got the phone call, and I rushed down. And when I rushed down, I told the city clerk, do not leave. I'm on 93. I'll be there in about 5 to 10 minutes. I came down, and I introduced myself. He came down with the sergeant. How you doing? My name's Vito. I am the owner. He introduced himself. Nice to meet you. Listen, I'm here to... Cool, not a problem. When he came down, I explained to him what's going on because there's been clashes going on between myself and the neighbor. And it's not the neighbors, it's a neighbor. And, you know, I've been itching to come here to stand up for myself because it's not fair that I'm being accused of all this stuff and not be able to stick up for myself. Because right now, you know, it's a he say, she said, but I'm here to speak up and clarify the situation. I'm not a gentleman who I just started business. I've been into this 20 years. I do a lot of events in my community. I just received an award this week for Best Auto Repair Shop out of Revere, 2018. I got proof on my phone that I could demonstrate this. I've done a lot of stuff for Mayor Aringo. I've done a lot of stuff with the governor. I do a lot of stuff with neighborhood development. I donate to the Everett Police Department. So I am aware of my community. I'm a community leader. I'm always involved in helping the neighborhood. My neighbor come next to me, say, Vito, I got a flat tire. It's 8:30 in the morning. I got to go to work. Sir, here you go. How much do I owe you? You're all set. Have a nice day. Another neighbor comes out. My battery is dead. Can you look at my car in my yard? Sure. What's wrong? You need a jump start, miss. Boom, jump start the car. Have a nice day. I take care of my neighbors. I'm not there to be fighting with my neighbors. And ever since I moved into the neighborhood, which hasn't been 1 year, I've just been attacked and attacked and attacked and attacked. Like, come on, man. I didn't move into this neighborhood for this. If you see my history, and everybody in here has a phone, Google Vito Shop. Look at the store ratings.
I'm sorry, audience, but everybody has to be a little quiet because the noise is picking up in the mics, and we're not able to hear this gentleman clear. So let's be fair with everybody, okay? Thank you. I'm sorry.
It's okay, miss. Again, if you see my background, I've done a lot of community work with neighborhood development, and I was trying to bring that same work into the neighborhood. But, you know, the accusations and this and that, after a while I came to realize that it was a problem that was already existing in the neighborhood before I moved in. I just walked in and I heard you, sir, stating you guys began the same report, the same thing for 20 years. So you know what that means? The problem has been there before I moved in. Mr. Ali has nothing to do with that. Mr. Sal has nothing to do with that. It's a problem that's been before Mr. Ali purchased the building in 2014. We're talking about 20 years. When the last complaint came in from the neighborhood, the letter, again, the main problem that I have, my next door neighbor, her neighbor came up to me and said, Vito, that's not true. Listen, this problem has been in this neighborhood before you even moved in. And I said, sir, I'm glad that you noticed. There's a few other faces in here that are here to support me. And I'm not talking about my guys. There's some neighbors in here who know who I am, who's visited the location. They know what I'm about, and they're here to support me.
So are you open on Saturday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m.?
Lately, I've been closed Saturdays. But I normally, Saturdays, I take Saturdays a half a day. I come in at 8:30, normally by noon, I'm shutting down.
And then Sundays?
Sundays are against the law.
Sundays, I do not work on Sundays.
We don't
Another
issue licenses
scenario.
on Sunday.
I want to clarify that scenario too. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, one of my employees, his kid spilled a bunch of stuff inside his vehicle. So he came to my facility. Again, he's not working on nobody's car, it's his own personal vehicle. He came to vacuum his car out. A lovely neighbor goes ahead and calls the cops. Cops come down to the vicinity. Sir, how are you doing today? There was about 3 cruisers came down. Hi, I am Guido. I work here. And sir, and whose car is this? Guido goes, this is my personal car. And what are you doing? As you see, I am vacuuming my vehicle. Is there a problem? Oh, we got a complaint that you guys are open for business. No, sir. This is my personal car. My kid spilled something. I just pulled up to vacuum it, and I'm leaving right now.
Can I just read you something real quick?
Mhm.
Those regulations include the following. So your hours of operation, business operation, auto repair, right? And then it says parking. Parking be provided in the lot for all employees. No parking in front of the bays unless a car is being moved to or from the parking area. No parking on the residential areas of Villa Avenue.
I'm familiar with that. I do not.
So that's including your employees, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So he was kind of in violation there doing that, wasn't he?
No, he's inside my facility. He's not in the street.
Oh, so he's inside. Okay, so he
Not-
wasn't on the street of the...
Not in the street.
Okay.
Again,
I wanted to...
clarify it. Again, that's why I'm here. I want to clarify the matter because, you know what, you guys got 1,000 other things to go on before this
Sir,
citizen
could you
we got
please,
going
I'm
on.
sorry, I don't want to be rude, just answer the questions, because we're going to run out of time.
Yep.
And that's not
I'm with
fair
you.
to everybody that's here. So just answer the question instead of going on and on, please. Thank you. Counselor Capone.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Through to our clerk. We just handed the hours and all of that. So it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, Saturday from 8 to 1. And are there any other restrictions on the license?
Yeah, no parking on Villa Ave, no parking, in the bays, they move cars in and out. Technically, I believe also there's no parking up against the fence of the property that it abuts, but, there's not really much room. This is not a facility like, so some restrictions for newer facilities are different, right? You need to have on-site parking, et cetera. Don't forget, this business, maybe he hasn't been here long, but that property's been here
Sure.
for decades
Yep.
prior to our zoning laws. So some of the zoning stuff you can't apply it to to old properties unless there's a change in use or if they
It's
change
been
the
a
facility or
constant
things
use
like that,
forever,
So a lot of some of the zoning that you can't equate to his place. But the other regulations, especially parking on Villa, parking in front of the bays, as long as they're rotating the cars in and out, because, I worked in a body shop, so you rotate cars in and out a little bit, moving in and out. And then parking on his side, no idling of vehicles, because that was an issue when I first came down. But like I said, some of the issues we've corrected since I've gone down, 4 months ago, originally.
So I know that you got a lot of complaints, and we've heard different complaints. what can you speak to firsthand? Is there anything ongoing at the property that's a concern at this point that you've seen firsthand?
When I've gone by, I haven't seen the late hour work, and I have not seen any more of the vehicles outside like they were prior.
Okay.
Again, I'm not
Okay.
gonna lie, I
Yeah.
can't be out on the street all
Right,
day.
you-
I do
you're
take,
only there
drive
so many
by
hours
as
in a
much
week.
as I can, but I'm in the office most of the day. But either I or David do
Okay.
try to make it a point wherever we go to drive by.
Okay.
Just to take a look, and not just him, we do that with all our
Sure.
facilities, but, where this was an issue, we've been going by a little bit more than we normally would, right? I haven't seen as much, but
Okay.
the neighbors still complain. The police have gone by and said they've noticed a little bit, little more activity, especially late night there, more recently. I
Okay.
don't know exactly what activity, they were pretty brief when they explained it to me,
Okay.
but there's activity going on either outside, and again, I don't know if it's always affiliated with him.
Sure.
But there's cars parked out front of there
Yep.
late at night,
Yep.
idling and stuff.
Okay.
And
And
I have seen some pictures.
How have all your interactions been with Mr. Colon?
He's been pretty good with us. He's come
Okay.
to the office 2 times,
Twice.
I believe, and
Okay.
I've been to the facility twice, and we've spoken. I had more of a tough interaction the first time, especially with his cousin.
cousin,
and,
okay.
Yeah, it was not-
Okay.
it was very abrupt, and I had a police officer there, so.
Okay.
But he's been very respectful to me, the landlord, the owner of the property, like I said. I've never had any bad interactions with them, but the neighborhood,
Yeah. Okay.
and a few people
Okay.
specifically do keep
Okay.
calling, keep having the same issues, and I
Okay.
try to be fair to both parties.
Yeah.
I listen to them, and listen
Sure.
to him, and
Sure.
listen to Mr.
Okay.
Amati, and try to work out whatever I can, so.
And that's all-
I
that's all we
report
can do,
my
so,
findings
yeah,
to him, and like I said, some things have been corrected, so I can't lie about that,
Okay.
but they still have an issue.
Okay.
And I don't know how to address it if I
Okay.
don't see it also.
Sure. Okay. All
But
right, no, thank you, Mr. Clark.
You're
Mr. Cologne, I've heard you talk about your work ethic, the way that you view the neighborhoods. You've been in the business for 20-some-odd years, and I appreciate all that. The tough thing is, we're not there. We don't know what's happening. The residents live there 24/7. You're running your operation within your hours. At the end of the day, everybody needs to get along.
That's
You know,
correct.
And that's what we all want. We just want everyone to get along.
And that's why I'm
Now,
here.
some of the things that we've been told about were vehicles that have been repaired, and I'm not asking you to address them, just, this is what we're told. Vehicles being repaired are being raced up and down the street, work after hours, vehicles being worked on the street. Our clerk says he hasn't seen that, but again, he only has limited number of hours. So what I'm going to say to you is I'm going to ask you to abide by whatever the rules are. You claim that you are. Our clerk can only patrol the area so often. He did say the police department said there was something about activity, but activity could be anything. You have people standing there talking. You have vehicles there. I don't know what that means. The concern I have is there was an altercation with, it sounds like employees and neighbors. That's got to stop. That cannot happen at all. So if anything like that's going on, you got to grab your employee and say, get in the building. That's the end of that, okay? I know you've got a court case coming up at the end of the month. You guys will have to resolve what that is. Our concern as a city council is that whoever's operating in the business is operating as a good neighbor, is a good neighbor to the residents that live there, and vice versa. And that's what we're going to be looking for. So I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to pass blame on anyone because I'm not there, I didn't see it. So what I am going to say is, if there is anything going on, if there is anything to what's being discussed, please get that under control. If there are any altercations or interactions with employees and neighbors, stop that and shut that down immediately. Please talk to your employees and say that cannot happen. And your court case will go the way it go. You guys will figure what you're going to do. And at that point, we'll see if there's any improvement. If there isn't any improvement, or if there are continuing altercations in the neighborhood, we as a committee, on behalf of the community, are going to have to step up our efforts.
I understand.
So I, from my own personal opinion, my own position, I'm going to say we're going to give everybody an opportunity. There's a court case going on. We're not going to get in the middle of all that. That's going to go however it goes. But I'm asking you to do what you need to do, and I'll ask the neighbors to give you some space, let you do what you have to do as long as you're doing it within your hours of operation. Let's see if we can all get along. If we can, beautiful. If we can't, we'll have to pick it up and address it at that point.
And I respect what you said because I agree with you. I'm not in a neighborhood to be fighting with my neighbors. I'm too much of a busy man for that.
I have one other speaker that wants to ask questions, if you don't mind.
Thank you. I don't
We
have-
are running
I don't
out
have
of
any
time, I'm
questions.
sorry.
Thank you.
Counselor Hanlon?
Thank you. Sir, if I may, I just want to talk about some things that you said. And just to let you know, my family's been in the repair business for years. And when someone comes into their shop and says, you know, when I drive my car at 27 miles an hour, it goes bump, bump, my brother would say, well, let me take it for a test drive, and take it out and drive it, and said 27 miles an hour, the car went bump to bump. He says, I know how to fix that. He would take it back to the shop and fix it. Call the person and say, come drive, take your car off for a test drive. He goes with them. At 27 miles, the car doesn't go bumpity bump, and he brings it back, the guy pays him, everybody seems happy. The thing is, they don't go by any neighbors. They don't buy neighbors' houses or anything like that. And I don't care if you take a car off for a test drive, but start on Ferry Street and go down somewhere where there's no cars, you know, because
I do that.
these people are fed up with it.
I do
Now,
that.
and you said that a neighbor came to you and said, you know, don't listen to them because that problem was here long before you were here. What I didn't hear was thank you for coming here and solving it, because you didn't solve the problem. The problem still exists. So that's why they're angry. It's gonna go on and on and on. That's
Because-
why I'm mad at this gentleman over here for allowing it to happen, to let you do that.
I understand.
It's gotta
but
stop.
It'll be a scenario if it's vehicles from my shop, but I have no control of traffic
That's right, you don't.
that's trying to
And I
cut.
understand that.
Nor Mr. Ali. So Mr. Ali cannot do nothing. Mr. Ali wants to do something, guess what we could do? We could put a speed bump right in the middle of the road. Those people who want to cut from Ferry Street to get to Broadway and speed up Villa Ave, guess what? Now you have to stop because there's a speed bump in the road. It does not necessarily mean that a car that goes up speeding Villa Ave comes from Vito's shop. Understand, sir?
I
So,
understand what you're saying. I understand.
you know,
You have to understand what we're saying
I
also.
respect. When I gotta take a test drive, I got Route 1,
There you go.
I have Route 16,
There you go.
because the speed limit is 35, 45 miles an hour. So if I gotta test a drive vehicle, honestly, Villa Ave is so tiny that for me to move up Villa Ave, I have to dodge between two neighbors' car, the next car, the next car, to get to the top. So you know what that means? I travel about 15 miles an hour. Careful if I reach 10, because the street's so tight.
No, I understand what you're saying. I really do. But I'm just saying, you know, if you have to test drive a car,
I'm with you. Like I said, I obey the laws, and, you know, I thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to stand up for myself so we could hear both sides of the scenario and clarify the matter so we can move on. Again, I'm an adult. If there's an issue, city clerk calls, hey, Vito, listen, the problem get taken care of right away. But when the accusations start pointing, right now, as you guys know, the 29th, I got a matter with my landlord. Why? Because he falsely lied that I owed 2 months of rent to save his license from being pulled out. So he's trying to get me out the facility on a lie. That's not fair to myself. So now I have
So, let's stick to the subject, please. We got 3 minutes left, so has your question been answered, Counselor? Okay, any further questions?
Make a motion.
Excuse with the customary thanks, and I'll,
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for
Thank
taking
you.
the time.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, if I may, I'd make a motion that we lay this over to December 10th, invite the license holder and the tenant up, and our city clerk, and try to get an update on what happened in court, get an update from our clerk, if our clerk could please keep an eye on the issue, and see what's going on in the neighborhood, and we'll pick it up and address it again in December.
okay, so a motion to lay it over until December 10th, inviting the license holder and the tenant holder, and have the clerk
Monitor.
monitor
interim, and come
what's
up
going on.
with an update.
I'm going to utilize your legislative aid maybe a little bit too in that, well, you know, to help me. That way we
Well, the
can monitor it
legislative
more
aid can go
hours.
out, and you also, you
So
can
we can
show
do-
them.
So we can be out there a little more.
Okay, so to have the legislative aid and the clerk
Yeah, that'd be
monitor the area.
And I don't know if this committee wants to do it, it may not be the worst thing to have one representative from the neighborhood to come forward.
Well, how do we pick a representative?
They'd have to pick one.
Okay, so I don't know if you, the people from Villa Ave understand that you could pick one representative to come up the next meeting to explain your side of the story. We can't have everybody. So is that correct? So what is your name?
My name is Rita McCauley, and I'm the grant abutter, and I don't quite understand
because it's not a public hearing. It has to be advertised. They were invited. They were both
They
invited,
were
ma'am.
formally invited because it
They
was
were
their
formally
license.
invited. I will explain that after the meeting, but would you like to come up and represent your neighbor? Your neighbors? So Rita McCauley.
Okay, so,
December 10th at 6 o'clock, Miss McCauley.
right, so we'll invite Ms. McCauley as
We'll also
well.
invite you to come up on the 10th, and you can speak for all your neighbors.
Yeah, they
It's
can,
up to,
they can
anybody can come, as
decide-
long as it's only one person.
They can
okay?
decide who that person's going to be.
Okay,
And then what we'll have there is we'll have a city clerk, we'll have the owner, we'll have the tenant, and we'll have the neighborhood. And that
Okay.
way we can see where we're at that point.
very good. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? You have adjourned.
School thing, same thing. Call for it.
Turkey money.
Are you, did I talk to you about the turkeys? I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Folks, can I have your attention, please? Could you please all silent quietly and sit down? We gotta get these meetings started. I know this is several of
December 5th.
we just wanna get it done. Please come in, you can take a seat, take out in the hallway.
This looks like a gasoline ad.
Yeah.
You know,
Calling the order of the regular meeting of the City Council, Tuesday, November 13th. Clerk will read the roll.
oh, this goes with it too. Stop. Supposed to work on the crowd.
Counsel Capone?
Present?
Counsel Della Sola?
Here.
Counsel DeFlorio? Counsel DePiero?
Here.
Counsel DeFlorio? Counselor Hanlon?
Here.
Counselor Marchese?
Here.
Counselor Matusky? Counselor McKinnon?
Here.
Counselor McLaughlin?
Here.
Counselor Simonelli?
Yeah.
And President Napolitano?
Here.
11 members present, Mr. President.
Please rise to salute the flag. I'd ask if you could please remain standing. A moment of silence and respect for Fireman Tad Baxter, also former Everett Auxiliary Police Officer, passed away over the weekend.
Could we please also have a moment of silence for Mike Sani, owner of Everett Carpet Cleaner for many, many years, and condolences go out to his entire family.
All right, we do have a presentation we need to do, but we need to do that after the public hearings. Public hearings are advertised, and by law, we need to start them on time. So clerk will read the first item on the agenda.
Item number 1 is a public hearing offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president to all parties interested in the petition for National Grid and Verizon to do work on Beecham Street to install one JO pole at a point approximately 189 feet west of the center line of the intersection of Beecham and Bean Streets, and to install pole 30198-1 in the grass strip beside roadway in between pole 3019 and 3020.
Councilman Capone.
Is the petitioner here, Mr. President?
Is the petitioner here from National Grid and Verizon?
If you could please have him before us.
We have a motion to have the petitioner before us. May I have a second? All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Please have a seat and introduce, if you could state your name and for the record.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Brendan Powell, electrical engineer for National Grid, 170 Medford Street in Malden. Get your name.
I'm Moses Okokoro, electrical engineer, 170 Medford Street, Malden.
Thank you. Council Capone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to our invited guests, could you just give the council an overview exactly what it is that you're looking to do, time frame involved, et cetera?
So this is approximately, we're going to require 1 day of work in the public way in the grass strip next to Beecham Street there. I was down Beecham Street maybe about a month ago, and some of the poles there are in pretty bad shape, and there's some very large industrial customers that are on the circuits that are on those poles, such as Aggregate, District Gas, Amazon. So this is essentially a reliability upgrade concerning that the weight of some of those high voltage cables are pulling that pole line over. There's a particularly long span between two of those poles there. It's something around 220 feet. And we would place in this pole in between those to support those cables so that they don't fall into the roadway during the next windstorm or cause any sort of risk to the public.
Okay, so there's an additional pole going in, are the existing poles in such condition that they need to be replaced?
We are replacing two of the other poles on the street there. We've already made temporary measures to anchor them backwards into the ground, but we'll be replacing them as well.
Okay, and it's a one-day job?
Right.
Okay, and I'm sure that you're aware, and our departments will be in touch with you with regards to any kind of work with baiting if need be, detail offices, that kind of stuff?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, I don't have any other questions.
Councilman DeFlorio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Now, are you just adding a pole? Are you also changing the existing poles?
We are adding a pole in a new location, and we
Right.
are replacing 2 existing poles.
With the 2 existing poles you're going to remove, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So it's not going to be like a double pole?
Nope,
Okay,
we'll be removing them.
very good, thank you.
Councilman Del Sol.
Once you replace these 3, you add a pole and replace the other 2, how long does it take you to transfer the lines over on the poles that are being replaced?
The electric cables are transferred that day. The telephone and communications lines, that information gets passed to those companies, and they have whatever the DPU requires. I think
Well,
it's
you know, in the
minimum
past,
90 days
this is our biggest problem.
is double
It gets
pole.
passed on, phone call after phone call after phone call, and the poles go up on one day, but there's gonna be a double pole there for 5 or 6 months until everybody else answers the phone and transfers everything over, correct?
That is correct.
So your job will be one day, and this could take 7 days to get rid of double poles.
Unfortunately,
7 months, sorry.
the situation doesn't allow us to touch cables
Correct.
that are owned by another company, and that's frustrating, because it is simple work that we could just do it all that day, but obviously there's union contracts involved with that.
Just
and
that you know,
other-
in the past, we've had issues here. All our colleagues have talked about it. The poles go up a year or 2, or not even- a year and a half. The double poles there, you're waiting for, not the Verizon or someone else to move that one more wire, get the double pole out of there. So if you could speed that process up somehow, I know it might sound impossible, but just speed that up to get this process done.
In terms of the jobs that I've handled, the planned jobs that I've written up, I've had a very, very good success rate at getting double poles removed that are planned jobs. I will say this, I've been with the company probably a year and a half. The double poles that everyone kind of forgets about are the ones that happens in the middle of the night. A motor vehicle hits it, it gets replaced in emergency, and it doesn't get tracked the next day. Or it gets knocked down by a tree in a storm. So those are the things that do get lost. And we do have a team of people that are working on that. But I will say for the planned jobs, they are handled on time.
What is your rule of thumb, once the pole is replaced, that everybody has to get their wires transferred over? Is there a certain amount of
I
days?
believe it's 90 days they have to. They have to transfer off.
I'll see you back here in 90 days?
I'll see you here.
All right. Thank you.
Councilman Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like to read these. You know, I like to figure out where they are and everything. You're going to put in the new joint pole, joint-owned pole, P3019-1, but that's not what your petition asks for. And it asks for, there's another number in there, 30198-1. That bothers me, because now I really don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think it's talking about this one.
Yeah, but this is 30198-1.
That number, just tell me the number is not correct. This one's not correct.
Oh, on the,
Yeah.
so it's not correct on the agenda, but it is correct on the drawing.
On the draft, yeah, on the.
So you say it's not correct on this?
Yes.
It is,
But
the
the drawing
correct
is
poll
correct?
number is 3019.
3019-1?
That's
That's
one,
correct.
yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All set, Councilman? Okay, Councilman McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, through you to invited guests, who actually does do the coordination of getting these wires removed off of these poles? Because I'm going to hit on the same topic that Council Del Sol just did, not to be dead horse, but we need to have a plan in place. I'd rather, to be honest with you, you guys come to us with a concrete plan in place of how this happens before we even vote on these, to be
So,
honest.
I prepare the work packet for our line trucks, the job card, the number of hours, the bill of materials. I hand that to our crews and our overhead supervisors, and I also prepare the 605, which is the exchange of notice,
So
which
it's called the
contains another
605?
drawing. Yep. And that is sent to Verizon through one of our clerks.
How quickly do they normally respond to you when you send the 605 order?
It's usually within a couple of weeks.
A few weeks?
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you, would it be detrimental, or what would be a setback if we were to ask you to come before us with a plan of how this happened? Because truthfully, National Grid doesn't have a good track record in our city. We all know that. It's not a secret in the chambers. And I'm concerned about voting for these tonight, to be honest with you. There's a lot happening in that area, and last thing we need is more double poles popping up. And we have the potential right now to have several of them happen on one street. So I'm wondering what would be detrimental to you guys if we said to you, let's hold this over for 2 weeks and ask for you to come with a plan for the 605 order, and that it's signed off and agreed upon by the other companies.
That sounds fair. Unfortunately, I can't control them. I can only speak for us.
Yep. Do you think you can get it signed off in a few weeks? You said a few weeks. A few weeks is 2 weeks. Could you get this signed off to show good faith, right? This might be the one time when we need to hold the feet to the fire, and then in the future we say, okay, they're working cooperatively together. Everybody's on the same page, and we can move forward with a different protocol.
I'll see if I can see if I can get something from them to say that they are aware of it, at least received notice.
You know what I mean? It's a concern. It really is. Can you provide one example of where you had this good success you speak of in the past year and a half with the company, that you've had a planned job and we've been able to execute a plan so that there wasn't a double pole left behind?
There was a street on Fairmont Ave on the Lynn-Saugus line. There was a development I had a hand in dealing with up there.
So
I
nothing
actually
in
brought up the
Everett,
whole
though?
thing. What?
Nothing in Everett?
No, generally I don't cover Everett as much. My towns there's like 6 or 7 engineers. We all have different town assignments. I usually do Medford, Malden, Melrose.
Okay.
I have some jobs in Revere, I have some jobs in Lynn, I have a few jobs in Everett. It's all based off of kind of where the economy's heading in all these towns. So we divide up the work.
I know Melrose pretty well, and so don't some of my colleagues. You don't see double poles in Melrose. I'll grant you that. You don't, because you know why? They don't allow them. They hold your feet to the fire, and I know the alderman over there.
Melrose doesn't necessarily have the growth that some of these other towns do.
Absolutely.
They're close to the
But
city.
they absolutely do not allow it to happen either in their community, and I know the past mayor and the alderman over there. So we need to start to hold your feet to the fire. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm not prepared to vote on these tonight unless you can prove to us some cooperation so that we don't have double poles popping up and we're stuck with it. Because once you guys leave town, it's over. The chase is on to be able to get these removed and to get these rectified and fixed. I'll leave the wish to my colleagues, but I think that we should table these and ask you to resolve the 605 plan that you speak of and show good faith on these before we move forward.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Frank, wanna make a motion? Mr.
All set, Councilman?
Favorable action? Excuse customary thanks.
Excuse the customary thanks. Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, have it. Councilman Capone.
Motion to open public hearing?
We have a motion to open the public hearing. Okay, do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Been asked three.
Mr. President,
Councilman
if we
Capone.
could lay this on the table, I'd appreciate it. Number one.
Okay, we have a motion to lay this on the table. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We're going to be opening up the other 2 public hearings. We have a number of presentation people here for other things. We're going to take care of that and then come back and vote on these items. Because just don't leave the...
Okay.
Okay. I have a motion for the clerk to read item number 2
Item
and
number
3.
2. Mr. President, is a public hearing offered by Council Peter A. Napolitano as president to all parties interested in the petition from National Grid, requesting to work on Clinton Street at a point approximately 30 feet northeast of the center line of the intersection of Chelsea Street and Clinton Street, and continuing approximately 250 feet in the northerly direction. National Grid to install 2 5-inch encased conduits from Chelsea Street to pole 4018 on Clinton Street.
Move we open public hearing?
I have a motion to open public hearing. Do I have a second? All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. President, make a motion, we lay it on the table?
We have a motion seconded to lay this on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 3.
Item number 3, Mr. President, is a public hearing to all parties interested in the public hearing for Crown Castle NG East LLC, requesting to work on 239 Second Street to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way.
Motion to open public hearing?
We have a motion to open the public hearing. We have a second. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
Motion to lay on the table?
We have a motion to lay this on the table. Second? No.
No, because we're going to take it back.
We're taking
this
it tonight. Postponed is the next meeting. I have a motion to lay this on the table. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
We need a second, there we go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. We'll do the president. What about the citation? Let's do citation first.
To open public participation.
Second motion.
All right. Okay, we have a motion to open public participation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Is anyone come up to speak before the city council?
Make a motion to close
We
public
have a motion to
participation.
close public participation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, before we move on to the next piece of business, I do have a presentation of a citation. Could I ask Pastor Christopher Johnson to please come up? Good evening, Pastor. Thank you for coming. I'd like to present a citation to Pastor Christopher Johnson in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Elm Street Baptist Church. Be it hereby known to all that the Everett City Council, in his honor, the mayor, offered their sincere congratulations to Pastor Christopher Johnson in celebration of the Elm Street Baptist Church 100th year anniversary from November 7th, 1918 to November 7th, 2018. The entire City Council extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued good fortune, given this 13th day of November 2018.
Pastor, on behalf of the City of Everett, we'd also like to, as the mayor, also like to congratulate you. On behalf of the City of Everett, I want to congratulate you on 100 years of dedication to the Everett community. We send our best wishes for continued success, given the 13th day of November 2018. God bless you, Pastor. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Pastor, since you are a man of faith, over the weekend, we lost one of our firefighters, Thaddeus Baxter. And as you can see, our membership is here with us tonight. And if you wouldn't mind, if you could say a prayer for Thaddeus and our members and all of us in this room, if that would be okay of you to? Thaddeus Baxter, yes. We all knew him as Ted. Ted. So if you can throw a blessing down, we'd love that.
Please rise.
Heavenly Father, I just thank you, Lord, for this day, this opportunity to come into your presence, Lord. You love us all, Lord, that you see us all where we are and what we're going through, Lord. We lift up to you, Lord, the family of Thaddeus Baxter, Lord, his friends, his colleagues, Lord. You know, the firefighters are doing a good job, Lord. I pray that you lead them now, Lord, surround and protect them as they go about their work, Lord. We thank you for this able service, Lord, and pray that you bless him even now as he comes into your presence, Lord, and bless all those who may, Lord, bring them into your presence, and bring them into fellowship with your Son, Jesus, I pray. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, clerk will read item number 4. Is that? Yeah, that's it.
Item number 4 is an order offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president in accordance with Section 4 CIA of the Administrative Code of the City of Everett, that the Everett City Council confirm the appointment of Lieutenant Ronald Simonelli to captain in the Everett Fire Department.
Favorable action. A motion for favorable action, second. Clerk will read the roll.
Council Capone.
Yes.
Council Della Sola.
Yes.
Council DeFlorio.
Yes.
Council DePiero.
Yes.
Councilor Hanlon.
Yes.
Councilor Marchese.
Yes.
Councilor Matusky.
Yes.
Councilor McKinnon.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Simonelli.
Yes.
And President Napolitano.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President. You're passed.
You have passed.
Captain, are we ready? Ready. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I
I, Ronald Simonelli,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I'll faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a captain in the Everett Fire Department,
as a captain in the Everett Fire Department,
according to the best of my abilities
according to the best of my ability
and understanding,
and understanding,
agreeably to the rules,
agreeable to the rules,
regulations,
regulations,
laws,
laws,
ordinances, and charter
ordinances, and charter
of the City of Everett.
of the City of Everett.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I
I, Ronald Simonelli,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance
that I'll be a true faith and allegiance
to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and I will support the laws
and I'll support the laws
and Constitution
and Constitution
of the Commonwealth.
of the Commonwealth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I
I, Ronald Simonelli,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I'll bear true faith and allegiance
that I'll be a true faith and allegiance
to the United States of America,
to the United States of America,
and I will support the Constitution
that I'll support the Constitution
of the United States.
of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Captain.
Clerk will read item number 5.
Item number 5 is an order offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president, in accordance with Section 4 CIA of the Administrative Code of the City of Everett, that the Everett City Council confirm the appointment of Private Scott Dalrymple to lieutenant in the Everett Fire Department.
Favorable action.
A motion for favorable action, second. Clerk will read the roll.
Council Capone.
Yes.
Council Della Sola.
Yes.
Council DePiero.
Yes.
Excuse me, Council DeFlorio.
Yes.
And Council DePiero.
Yes.
Councilor Hanlon.
Yes.
Councilor Marchese.
Yes.
Councilor Matusky.
Yes.
Councilor McKinnon.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Simonelli.
Yes.
And President Napolitano.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
You've passed the order.
You ready? Raise your right hand. I say aye, say your name, okay? I
Scott Dalrymple,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me,
all the duties incumbent upon me
according to the best of my abilities
according to the best of my ability
and understanding,
and understanding,
agreeably to the rules,
agreeably to the rules,
regulations,
regulations,
laws,
laws,
ordinances, and charter
ordinances, and charters
of the City of Everett.
of the City of Everett.
As a captain, as a lieutenant in the Fire Department,
As lieutenant in the fire department,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I
I, Scott Dalrymple,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and I will support the laws
and I will support the laws
and Constitution
and Constitution
of the Commonwealth.
of the Commonwealth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I
God Dalrymple,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the United States of America,
to the United States of America,
and I will support the Constitution
and I will support the Constitution
of the United States.
of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Lieutenant.
Mr. Clerk?
Ready, Rod?
Yeah, that's the company doing our tablet system.
We got a quorum. We will resume the meeting. I'll entertain a motion to reopen item number 1.
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, we have opened the public hearing on item number 1. I'm going to ask 3 times if there's anybody in the audience in favor. After that, I'll ask 3 times if anybody is opposed. And after that, then the council will make a vote. So, first of all, anybody in favor of item number 1? Anybody in favor of item number 1? Anyone in favor of item number 1? Seeing as no response, we close that portion of the meeting. Is anybody opposed to item number 1? Anybody opposed to item number 1? Third time, anyone opposed to item number 1? Seeing as that, we close that portion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Yep, so just so you know, it was posted correctly in the newspaper. It said 3019-1. It's just a typographical error that was on the agenda, but it was posted legally, so it does not need to be amended.
Okay.
You're welcome.
I'll entertain a motion.
Favorable action?
We have a motion for favorable action. Second. Council McLaughlin on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the motion, as I said previously, we have seen not a good track record with National Grid when it comes to double poles, unfortunately, in our city. The gentleman was here tonight. He gave us an example of some success he had in another town. That doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't tell me that we have a good success rate in the city of Everett when he talks about something that happened in a surrounding community. This is a street that has no true impact on any resident. We don't want to hold residents' feet to the fire when we're talking about National Grid, but this is one example that doesn't affect a resident. I asked him what it would do if we table this for 2 weeks and asked him to get this 605 plan signed off that he spoke about, and he said there'd be no negative impact to the work being done. I think if we have the opportunity to hold their feet to the fire and let National Grid know that we're serious about them treating our community like they treat the surrounding communities, we owe it to the residents in the city. I'd make a motion that we table this for 2 weeks with hopefully the success of having the 605 plan signed off in 2 weeks. We come back and we'll be able to vote in favorably of this, comfortably knowing that in 90 days, we're not going to have to come back and revisit 2 new double poles on Beecham Street. But I'll leave the decision to my colleagues, but I think we have the opportunity tonight to hold the National Grid's feet to the fire, finally, for the first time, and let them know that we're tired of the lip service that we get here in the chambers. Thank you.
Councilman DeFlorio?
I agree with the council on Ward 6. We've been going through this for years, and there's a lot of double poles in the city that haven't been taken care of, and there's also a lot of poles that are very dangerous, that they're tipped over. There's too many wires. So I would agree with the council from Ward 6 to hold this over until they get the signatures, because we get, every year, that's what we hear. Well, Comcast didn't come out, Verizon didn't come out. They own the pole. They can do whatever they want. They can make these people move the wires. So I would agree with my counsel from Ward 6.
Okay, still there's only one motion before you, Council Capone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I totally understand the concerns and I understand the frustration. My only concern is I want to make sure there isn't a safety issue in the interim. However, I think our clerk has indicated that he's spoken to some individuals and we could hear from him. I'd appreciate it.
You need to make a second if you want the motion to stand. Thank you. Okay, so now there's 2 motions. The clerk has some additional information to share.
So just so you know, on the double pole issue specifically, we've discussed this for years now. Myself and the Assistant City Solicitor have now taken this pretty much where a task force of 2. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago with RCN, Comcast, Verizon, and I'm missing someone. There's 4 companies. All 4, and National Grid, excuse me. The 4 companies have not only discussed all double poles and promised us that they'd work. Me specifically, have stated the anger of this board with how they have treated the city of Everett. I made it very clear that if they do not start working with this community on getting rid of double poles, we are going to keep their feet to the fire on the 90 days. We, in accordance with both city ordinance and state law, can fine them daily, every day that is not done. So they have promised to work with us, and so far they have done so. Myself and the Assistant City Solicitor, who is in the audience today, have already began the process of marking what double poles we have. They are to inform us of any double poles going forward, and we will start the clock right away. We have access to a program coming very soon that we'll know every double pole in the city on their end, and then we will manually match that with with our assessment. So we have taken a very serious interest in this because of the city council in the past with the recent issues, and the administration. The mayor has been very clear that he is not happy with it. His office gets tons of calls. So I just want you to know that the city clerk and the administration, the assistant city solicitor, have been working on the issue and will continue to work on the issue. I ask that you give some time for us to handle the issue before we don't issue permits. I think it's fair to give them a little time. I know you're discontent with going on in the past, but we had a very productive meeting for almost 2.5, 3 hours at City Hall, and we had some of the other administrative officers there, ISD and building. So we are working on the issue. We are trying to correct it, and we'd like to give myself, the Assistant City Solicitor, and the companies a little time to kind of figure out exactly what we need to do and what is the best way to move forward. So I just wanted to give you, I thought it was very important where that's what we're talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Mr. President, just for further clarification, with this particular poll, will this be subject to the 90 days, or is this going to kind of fall?
Every single poll, so in the past, we just didn't adhere to it as much. Now they will. So I'm going to issue this permit on Thursday, and the clock starts once the permit is valid.
And I think one other thing, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. President, I think one other thing that we should keep in mind is I know that if we go beyond the 90 days, we do have this task force of 2 individuals monitoring the polls. Going forward, I'm not sure what the fine structure is, but we should look at that. And we should also incorporate reimbursing their time and the salary for going out and doing the work that should be done by these companies. So that's something I'm going to take a peek at a little later on. But thank you. So I guess you have 2 motions in front of you.
We have 2 motions and one other speaker who has not spoke. Sorry, Councilman McLaughlin, you've spoken twice on the piece. Councilman Del Sol?
Just to my colleagues who just talked about this, if you want, it's just a suggestion, that we make this a test, because we have the task force ready, it's been involved with National Grid and everybody else. Do we make this their test to see how they do with the 90-day corridor they have to do this? It's just a suggestion to throw out there, if they want to give them the permit and see how they do with our eyes around them. We're not just going to turn our back. So this is your test right now to see how you do in the 90 days. You have success in other cities, that's great, but this is it right here. It's 4th down. So let's see, it's just a suggestion, I'm throwing it out there if you agree with that, if not. Thank you.
Councilman Hamlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as I look at the diagram here, I can see between pole 19 and pole 20, it's a direct line where wires are running from one pole to another.
You've already spoken twice.
With this new pole that's coming in, 3019-1.
You spoke on the first
I'm
part
wondering
before we postponed it.
what wires
Spoke on
are
the
going to be
second part of
attached
the
to this
motion.
new pole,
Okay.
and if all of the wires are not transferred over, are those wires still going to hang out through the middle of the year? That's what I want to know. Get it?
I can't answer that question, Councilman. Would you like to have
Yeah, I would.
them come right back up?
Yeah.
If you could
Just
please
a
come
quick
back for us again?
Not in the middle. No, it's offset. I'm looking at
Counsel.
the,
There we go.
I'm looking at the diagram, and the new pole is offset from the other 2 poles,
Right.
right? So, if you change the wire, your wire, let's say that you change the National Grid wire to that pole, it'll go directly to the pole, and then that will go to the next pole. What about the wires that are left? Are they still going to hang out in the middle of the air?
So that is subject to the telephone companies if they reject our 605 offer. They can reject the offer to take ownership in the pole, which means that we'll be the sole owners of the pole and only electric cables will be attached to it. It is the electric cables right now that is causing this pole line to come over based off their severe weight. It's not necessarily the phone lines that are pulling over this pole line.
Right.
So we do offer ownership, and that's based off of, if they accept ownership, they will attach. Placing this pole does not generate a double pole since there's nothing
Right,
there.
I can see that, yeah.
But that's based off of whether they want to own it or not, whether they want to take part ownership.
So you're talking about joint-owned pole that we don't really know if it's going to be a joint-owned pole yet?
Right, we are required to offer joint ownership
Okay,
to them.
and if they say no,
Then it
the
becomes,
wires will stay out in the middle of the way, of the road?
then they will not be allowed to attach any phone, cable, internet, or anything like that to it, and they will stay out exactly where they are right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Be excused.
Excuse customary thanks. Thank you. Okay, we have two motions before us. The first motion is to postpone this till our next meeting. All in favor? Opposed?
No.
No.
Chair's in doubt. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand to acknowledge. In favor of postponing this till the next meeting? All in favor? Raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. That's failed. Next motion is for favorable action. It's been seconded. Clerk will read the roll.
Yes.
Sorry, Counsel. Counsel Del Sola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
No.
Counselor DePiero.
Yes.
Counselor Hanlon.
Yes.
Counselor Marchese.
Yes.
Counselor Matusky.
Yes.
Counselor McKinnon.
No.
Counselor McLaughlin.
No.
Counselor Simonelli.
Yes.
And President Napolitano.
Yes.
8 yeas, 3 nays, Mr. President.
You've passed item number 1. Okay. Take a motion to take item number 2. Or a second? All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, we opened the public hearing on this prior to the presentations. So I'm going to, again, as in the last piece, I'm going to ask 3 times, anyone in favor of this item? And then I'm going to ask 3 times, anyone opposed? Okay. Now, is anybody in favor of this item? Anyone in favor of this item? 3rd time. Is anyone in favor of this item? There's no response. Is anyone opposed to this item? Is anyone opposed to this item? 3rd time. Is anyone opposed to this item? That closes that portion.
Second motion.
We have a motion to close public hearing. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Favor.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? We have a motion to have the petitions before us. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
This is for item 2, correct?
Item number 2, yes.
Okay. All right, so this petition is to install approximately 250 feet of concrete encased electric ducts from pole 4018 to existing manhole 367. It will take approximately 3 to 5 days. Our civil crews will do that based off your recommendations of working hours. We figured that would be during the day since it was a residential neighborhood. This project is part of a larger part of a 4,000 volt conversion. A lot of the older parts of Everett, and actually a lot of Malden and Medford, downtown Lynn, have a very old voltage capacity, and that kind of limits the size of certain businesses and customers on those networks. And installing these ducts is going to allow us to convert a lot of Chelsea Street, Clinton Street, and Winter Street to the higher 13,000 voltage network. So this is a reliability and system improvement upgrade for this area. Do you have any questions?
Counsel Capone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to our guests. You've already addressed the duration and the overall project. Obviously, you said you'd work within the hours of operations recommended by the community. What, if anything, is above ground here?
So the only thing above ground is the existing pole, 4018. The rest of Chelsea Street is an existing manhole and duct system. The 13,000 volt network is on the pole line, the overhead pole line on Clinton Street, and we want to feed that down into Chelsea Street. So these pipes will allow us to connect those two networks.
Okay, so the only thing is the pole.
Right, but that's already existing and that's not changing.
So nothing's changing there. Okay. And again, obviously, you stated it. It's a residential area, so we want to be mindful of the residents. Prefer to do that work during the day hours, so it doesn't interfere with individuals at evening and all that. So, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Counsel Matusky.
Thank you, Mr. President. I forgot your name, sir. I apologize.
Brendan Powell.
Mr. Powell, are you notifying the residents on Clinton Street?
We will be, yes.
Okay, that's very important, because you're going to explain that it's 3 to 5 days. And I just want to mention, I have an item on the calendar here, number 18, that I'll address later in the meeting, but I think you should read that resolution so that your company understands that we're going to change the way you trim trees with the wires and so forth. And the other thing, we just granted a license on Ferry Street to that, it was a 12-unit building. You recall that? There was another gentleman here, Mr.
Cordima, older guy?
Older gentleman, yes.
Right.
Now, he said the sidewalk would be cemented and repaired. The work is done. It was a 2 or 3 day job. I rode by there tonight. It's hardtop, where it once was concrete. So there again, you know, address that to Mr., what's the other gentleman's name?
Well, I'm going to take that up with the contractor.
Okay, because he said one thing and he did another.
Right.
Clinton Street is a very nice neighborhood, okay? A lot of elderly that live there. Let's do this professionally, notify everybody, and I don't want this dragged out for a couple of months. This is a 5-day project.
Yes.
I'm going to vote in favor of it, but, you know, let's stay to our word.
This will be, this project will be handled by our in-house civil crews.
And it'd be in the middle of the street?
So it's going to cross Clinton Street, as shown in the drawing, but then it's going to follow the edge of the curb.
But there'll be no sidewalk disruption?
I anticipate they might have to replace a little bit of sidewalk, depending on where that back wall, the manhole is.
All right.
On the corner there, but if they have to replace that panel, so be it. They may be able to undermine and get right to that manhole wall without breaking the sidewalk.
Okay. Well, you'll be up here again for various petitions, and we're going to see how well you do on this one. But I'll vote in favor of it, but, you know, you got to stick to your word and put the hard top back so the street doesn't have a dip in it for 250 feet.
Right.
Like some of the work's been done in this city.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll vote for this, Mr. Powell. Thank you.
Seeing there's no further questions, excuse the customary thanks. Thank you. We have a motion for favorable action. Do I have a second? Okay, clerk will read the roll.
Yes. Counsel Capone.
Yes.
Counsel Della Sola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio. Counsel DePiero.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Marchese.
Yes.
Counsel Matusky.
Yes.
Counsel McKinnon.
Yes.
Counsel McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli.
Yes.
And President Napolitano.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
You have passed item number 2. Clerk will read item number 3.
Item number 3. Oh, we've already actually read that, Mr. President.
We have a motion to take it from the table. May I have a second? All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 3.
Item number 3 is to all parties interested in the public hearing for Crown Castle NG East LLC requesting to work on 239 2nd Street to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public public way, which is Boston Street. Um,
All right, so the first thing we'll do is, again, just as before, we're going to ask 3 times, anyone in favor of this item? And then at that point, seeing as none, there will be anybody opposed. Anybody in favor of item number 3? Anyone in favor of item number 3? Anyone in favor of item number 3? Seeing as none, anybody opposed to item number 3? Anybody opposed to item number 3? Anybody opposed to item number 3? Seeing as there's none, I'll entertain a motion to close public participation. Do we have a second? All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Would you like to invite the sponsors up? Councilor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, can we, if the sponsors are in the audience, can they come up
Please
to
go.
give us an overview of what exactly this request is?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. If you could state your name and position for the record.
Ed Fellenbaum, Program Manager for Crown Castle.
Amanda Cornwall, Government Relations Specialist for Crown Castle.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Thank you. Can you guys just explain to us what you're looking to do? I have a pretty good understanding that this is already in place in several locations in our community, I believe. If you can just give us an overview of what exactly you guys are trying to do here.
Of course. So good evening, council members. Again, my name is Amanda Cornwall, Government Relations Specialist for Crown Castle. I'm also joined by Ed here. He's here for some moral support and then to answer some questions if I don't have the answers for you. So we're here for a granted location to run about 550 feet of fiber down 2nd Street along from pole 1681. We have an enclosure there. It's going to run down 2nd Street and then up Boston. This is necessary to help us accomplish our broader goal of co-locating Sprint onto 7 utility poles where we have existing equipment, which I'll be discussing later this evening. This fiber is necessary for us to tie Sprint into our network, and this is a highly industrial area, should cause minimal to no disturbance to residents, and it's a small amount of fiber that permits us to achieve a lot without causing a lot of disruption.
Do you have any of this currently in the city of Everett? Any of these fiber lines or any of this, is this already in the city or is this new to our community?
This fiber here, this is new, but we do currently have fiber in the city.
So you currently have wires attached to some poles throughout our community?
That's correct.
Roughly, do you know how many?
I do not.
Okay. I'll yield the floor to my colleagues.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to our guests, good evening. So it sounds like most of this is underground?
No, this is aerial.
It's aerial. Okay,
Yes.
so explain to me what exactly is being put in. You've got the fiber. Is there any equipment or anything of that nature?
No, this is just fiber to
Okay.
tie Sprint into our network.
Okay, so it's 550 feet?
Correct. And then it runs into the building on 329 2nd Street. The best picture is, I'm sorry, these pages are not numbered, but it's the second to last page of the drawings. I have extras if anyone needs a copy.
Where it's listed detail in letters?
Yes.
Okay, which detail would it,
This picture here.
okay. All right. And how high above overhead is that?
So our wires typically are in between just above secondary power, so roughly probably about 25 feet.
Okay. And as you pointed out, it's primarily a industrial, commercial area. You said it would have minimal impact on the residents. There are residents somewhat in the general area. Do these emit any kind of noise or anything of that nature?
No, this is just fiber lines.
Okay. And roughly how long of a project is it?
It's about 2 weeks complete.
And any digging or anything of that nature?
Nope, no digging.
Okay, so it's just connection and overhead and?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Councilman Matusky.
Thank you, Mr. President. You were before us before, as I recall this company. Is this your first time in the chamber?
This is my first time.
Oh, your first time.
But I'm not.
But I think the company was here before.
Yes, I believe they would have been. We used to be NextG, is that?
NextG. Now, these devices, I think, I got the package in the mail, I believe, from clerk. But there's a device that goes on top of the pole?
That's part of the item that we're bringing, number 9, but I'm happy to discuss
Oh, number
that
9?
now
Yeah, so we
as
have-
well, or?
It's a separate issue.
All right,
but
it's a separate, we
separate
can only
issue.
take
Separate
one
issue.
item at a time, but I just want to take a peek at number 9. Okay. Now, it's my understanding that you can actually put these antennas, what's the term that I want to use? Is it an antenna?
Yes, the nodes.
You can't put them on a building and pay rent to those people?
There are options.
Councilman,
to
this
do
is not, that's on item number 9. This is regarding stringing fiber optics from one place to another. There is no other additional equipment, is that correct?
that. That's correct.
Okay, not on this item.
All right, so number 9 is different than number, it's the same company, though. Is number 9 connected to the number
No.
3?
No, it's not.
The same company?
But it's not the same work. This is a public hearing for item number 3. Item number 4 is,
No, item number 3. Is it number 4? All right, well, it's the same company, so I can ask that question. You'll be here to answer questions on number 9?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I haven't finished reading this, but how many poles are involved?
It looks like there's 4.
Are you installing 4 poles?
No, these
That-
are all existing poles.
So you're going to install 1 pole?
No poles.
No poles?
No poles,
Thank
just
you.
fiber.
Okay.
Is that it? Councilman McKinnon?
Through you, Mr. President, to our invited guest. So number 3, that's what we're on right now. We don't want to discuss number 9 because of our ruling here, but does number 3, do you have to have number 3 to actually get to number 9?
No. But it is part of our larger project.
Okay, so it's part of it.
Yes,
So number 3 is part of number 9.
correct. The fiber run is forced to tie Sprint into our network, and then later, item number 9 will be to discuss Sprint's deployment.
Okay, so we'll stick to number 3. So without number 3, you can't do number 9. Right? So fair enough to say.
Sure,
Oh,
yes.
That's great. All right, so, right now, you're just up here looking to do number 3, it's fiber,
Correct,
and it's going overhead, correct?
correct.
Okay. And that's gonna connect, 500 feet?
It's about 550 feet. It starts at an enclosure that we have at pole 681.
What's the enclosure?
Splice enclosure.
Okay.
So it's
splice right into
it's
it?
an existing splice. So we're going to tie that splice case into the building, essentially to connect up.
And you already said there's no emissions that come out of this, or anything like that?
Correct.
That would be number 9. Okay, so, all right, so you gotta get number 3 to get to number 9. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Councilman DeFlorio.
Thank you, Mr. This may sound like a stupid question, but how heavy are these wires that you're putting in?
Good question.
Are they thin, are they large, are they heavy?
They're relatively thin. Do we? Let me take a quick look at the plan.
I think it does say the weight, but I don't know if that will help.
The
the
reason why I'm
cable is-
asking that question is because our poles are really overloaded in the city of Everett, and they're bending. So I don't understand weight, and I'm not gonna sit up here and make believe I understand weight, because I don't know who we would call to understand how much weight a pole could hold.
So the cable we're putting in is all plastic.
It's all plastic, so it's
not-
pretty
there's-
light.
It's relatively light, and part of our engineering analysis is we actually do a structural calculation on the pole itself to make sure we're not going to break it. So that's part of our overall process to put the engineering plans together. So, and
Okay.
that all came back okay. So otherwise, we would have to replace the pole.
So an engineer does look at these poles to see if it can hold the weight? That's-
Correct.
okay.
Correct. Yep.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Welcome.
Excuse the customer. 1 second. Council McLaughlin, did you have something?
So Councilman Matusky brought up a very good point, which is, can these go on a building? We're again talking about those poles and how we get wires removed off of poles, and we're going to add more wires to the poles in our city. Is this a structure or wires that can be attached to a building due to the fact that building owner has more authority or more persuade on getting things resolved on their building? In our city, we seem to have a real roadblock with being able to get wires removed off of poles when it's time to remove wires off of poles in our city. But we continue to vote on it.
If there's ever an issue of needing to move us, we're more than happy to cooperate with Verizon, whoever owns the pole.
Is building structures reasonable, or do you do that in other communities? Is that something that is done anywhere else?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, you know what I mean? Because,
We follow existing aerial routes.
okay, you know what I mean? We continue, I'm gonna vote on it tonight, but I just hope that you'll keep your commitment to the fact that if there comes a time where your wires need to be removed, that you'll come to the city and you'll cooperatively work together to remove your wires so that, we don't continue to see the disastrous double poles that we're facing in our city right now. And I think, if you are telling me you will do that, I appreciate the commitment, and I will vote favorably on that because of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing as no further questions, the motion to excuse customary thanks. Thank you. We have a motion for favorable action. Second, clerk will read the roll.
Counsel Capone.
Yes.
Counsel Della Sola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel DePiero.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Marchese.
Yes.
Counsel Matusky. Counsel McKinnon.
No.
Counsellor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counsellor Simonelli.
Yes.
And President Napolitano.
Yes.
10 yeas, 1 nay, Mr. President.
You've passed the item.
Suspend the rules, take item 8.
Second.
I have a motion to suspend the rules, take item number 8. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 8.
Item number 8 is an order offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president. In order to raise and appropriate $2,515,109 for the Everett School Department to help offset the reduction of Chapter 70 funding during the budget process for FY19. This funding is a result of the state's increase in Chapter 70 funding after the budget process.
Favorable action.
Call for the question?
Second.
Second.
1 second. It's the first time it's being read.
Suspend Rule 13.
We have a motion to suspend Rule 13. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On the piece?
There's a motion for favorable action. Was there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion on the motion. Councilman McLaughlin has the floor first. Call for the question?
I already did.
Was there a second?
Second.
Okay, all debate ceases. Clerk will read the roll.
Counsel Capone.
No, I've got a question for our CFO.
Counsel
Well,
Della
we had a
Sola.
finance meeting.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel DePiero.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon. Counsellor Marchese.
Yes.
Counsellor Matusky.
Yes.
Counsellor McKinnon.
Yes.
Counsellor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counsellor Simonelli.
No.
And President Napolitano.
Yes.
That's 8 yeas, 3 nays.
You've passed the
So
item.
passed the order.
Can I move?
Excuse me, Councilman? Councilman, you need to turn your mic on. I can't hear you.
Apologize. Can I move for reconsideration on the piece?
He's in the,
You're on the favorable side. We have a motion favorable for reconsideration. Is there a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. You have the piece back in front of you.
Mr. President, on the motion.
Motion. It's in front of you. I have opened, the piece is now
President,
open.
on the motion.
I have one thing first. We have now taken a motion to bring it back. It's now before you. Would you like to make a motion? Council McLaughlin.
Mr. President, on the motion, can
No,
we?
we have to vote on it.
We have to vote on
We have to vote on it if we want to reconsider it.
Is a general vote?
yeah, they need to vote on it to say yes, they'd like to take the piece back. It's both made and seconded by the yeah.
Clerk will read the roll. On
This is
reconsideration.
Number 8. Counselor Capone.
Yes.
Counselor Della Sola.
No.
Counselor DeFlorio.
No.
Counselor DePiero.
No.
Counselor Hanlon. Counselor Marchese.
No.
Counselor Matusky. No. Counselor McKinnon.
No.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli.
No.
Counselor Napolitano.
No.
And that is 3 yeas, 8 nays. Reconsideration is failed.
Reconsideration has failed. Pass the item.
And the order is officially passed.
Clerk will resume back to the regular order of the meeting.
We do have one on the sign-in
We have somebody
sheet.
on the sign-in sheet?
Yep, just
What
item number 17, Mr. President.
We have a motion, suspend the rules, take item number 17. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 17.
Favorable action.
Wait for the item to be read first. Please,
Item number
wait.
17. Is an ordinance offered by Councilor Michael K. Marchese to amend by deleting Section 10-27 inspection request before occupancy of Article 3 Certificate of Habitability. Please note that though it reads that way, it was amended to change some of the language, which was all given to the councilor and posted in accordance with the law. It was to change the word from may on the first line, which was must. Just give me a moment.
Change it to me.
Yep, I'm just going to read it if you could indulge me one moment. Here we go. The owner may request a legal use of status from the building department of the city of Everett. If such inspection is granted by the property owner for that unit and all common areas shall be allowed access by the ISD department. No other unit or area not in common with the tenants shall be inspected without property owner approval. Any additional inspections of that property shall not influence any decision of the originally inspected unit. Those are the amendments that were put forth by the council at the last meeting. This was posted. This is for ordainment.
Favorable action.
Councilman Marquez.
Call for the question?
We have people on a sign-in sheet
Yes.
for this piece, though. Isn't that the purpose of taking it out of order?
Then we do that for 6 months.
There are speakers on the piece.
Call for the question.
But
Yep. I'm just
We have a
waiting
motion for favorable action. It's been seconded, called for the question.
for ordainment.
Okay, for
Counsel
ordainment?
Capone.
No.
Counselor Della Sola.
no.
Counselor DeFlorio.
No.
Counselor DePiero.
No.
Counselor Hanlon. Counselor Marchese.
Yes.
Counselor Matusky.
Yes.
Counselor McKinnon.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin. Counselor Simonelli. No. And President Napolitano.
No.
That would be 3 yeas, 7 nays. The ordinance has failed for ordainment.
Please revert back to the regular order of business. No.
That one didn't need a roll call. Yeah, voice I heard. All right.
Mhm.
Right?
Number 6. I'd like to entertain a motion for item number 9 while the sponsor is still here. Do we have a second? All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 9.
Item number 9, Mr. President, is a petition offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president. The Crown Castle NG East LLC to replace antennas at several locations.
Entertain a motion to invite the sponsors before us. Second. Do all in favor? Gentlemen, how many conversations are we going to have out there? I've asked for a second, and nobody's acknowledging it. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Please come up and state your name again for the record.
Good evening, again, Amanda Cornwall, Government Relations Specialist, Crown Castle.
Ed Fellenbaum, Program Manager for Crown Castle.
Council Capone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to our guests. It says replace antennas at locations, so it's plural. Could you explain exactly where and what we're looking at in terms of size of these things and where they're going to be placed?
So what we're looking to do, again, looking to replace existing equipment that's consisting of a pole top antenna and a side-mounted shroud with a new antenna and a new shroud. By upgrading our equipment at these locations, we'll be able to co-locate Sprint. Co-location allows us to keep our equipment consolidated by occupying one pole with 4 carriers instead of having to occupy multiple poles for each carrier. This also allows us to keep the equipment from being redundant. This ensures that we can accommodate the most wireless carriers with the least amount of redundant equipment. In addition, by co-locating, that means that there's no new fiber, no new power, and no new digging at the node site. We can swap out these antennas and shrouds in about a day, so there's going to be minimal disruption to residents. This new equipment allows for more airflow, and the new shrouds have a sound dampening technology, so it will reduce the noise. And then lastly, these are all eligible facilities requests as defined by the FCC, which was explained in more detail in the letter that accommodated my petition. As an eligible facilities request, the level of review that the city is permitted is limited, and the petition must be approved. All these factors, though, bring value to the city of Everett by allowing better access to high-speed mobile broadband, better coverage in general. It helps unload the macro sites as the demand for data increases. It helps with public safety. And again, I said it's minimal disruption. We go in there, we swap out the equipment, we're done. We strongly believe that co-location is the best model for everyone from a policy standpoint. So you want to talk about?
Okay. So I'm glad to hear there's no new power, no new poles, no new digging,
Yep.
and they're relatively quick. What are the actual locations that you're looking at?
So there is one on Union Street. It's in front of the Golden Age Circle.
Okay.
There's one on 33 Mount Washington Street. There's one between the properties of 48 and 50 Bentonson Ave, on the corner of 916 Broadway and Porter Street, between the properties of 19 and 23 Park Road, on the corner of 223 Elm Street and Madison Ave, and then between the properties of 77 and 79 Abbott Ave. Now, these are just 7 locations, but we do have 21 locations throughout the city of Everett.
Okay, so the 7 that you're looking to address, though?
Yes.
And there's already this equipment in there? This is an upgrade?
Yes, and it's more advanced.
Okay, in terms of size, what is this similar, smaller?
It's slightly larger.
It's like, how large is slightly larger?
So we're looking at, right now, the antennas are 48 inches. They'll remain 48 inches, so the structures will not be getting any taller. And the diameter is, it's 10 inches rounder. So right now it's 8.16 inches in diameter. It's going to get up to about 18 inches in diameter. The new shrouds are They come in two different flavors. We have a 50-inch shroud and a 70-inch shroud. And the existing shroud is about 48 inches in
Okay.
height.
What's the new ones you're putting in? I know you've got two.
Yep.
Which one are you looking to do, the 50 or the 70?
So we have they come in two different flavors that we're looking to do at these locations.
Okay.
We have a 70-inch shroud, so it's 70 inches high and 20 inches wide. And then we have a 50-inch shroud, so it's 50 inches high and 30 inches wide.
Okay, so how many of these are going to be 70?
Double check, I believe it's 5.
In which locations are those going to have 70?
I misspoke, there's 4. The 70 inches are the one in front of Golden Age Circle, Mount Washington Street, the Park Road, and Elm Street in Madison.
Okay. And is there anything with these dimensions elsewhere in Everett or no, or maybe a neighboring community could take a look at this?
There's none currently deployed in Everett. However, we are in
That's 5 minutes.
Boston.
All right. We have a 5-minute rule.
Brookline.
I can't speak any longer, but you're free to talk. So,
Councilman Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You had indicated that you have 27 of these items in the city of Everett?
21.
21. Did you come before the city government to get all of these?
My predecessor may have. I believe we first came around in 2008 and then again in 2015 to upgrade the equipment. I was not here, but my assumption would be that we would have done whatever the city had required at that time.
Yeah, could you check that out? Because, we've been here for a while, and, the first one to come along was down on Ferry Street, and we didn't want it, and they eventually did not put it in. They put it someplace else. But, I was not aware that you had 27. I don't know how many are in the city that don't belong to you. If you had asked me, I would have guessed that maybe 5 in the whole city, but now you're telling me your company has 21.
Yes, we used to be called NextG.
No big deal about it, but I'd like to, if you could give me back a report on how you got them into the city of Everett.
Counselor, I actually
Okay.
have that in my office.
I'm not going to stop any, but I would like to know. And the other
Counsel,
thing
the
is,
clerk has some information.
I have that in my office. It was actually prior to 2008, because I was on the council then. It was actually under your tenure as mayor. The city council passed them. I believe it was 06 or 07. I have the list of them in my office. It was prior to 08. It's when they were NextG, but I do have it.
okay. Scratch that, I'll talk to you, okay?
Thank you.
The other thing is, how are these attached to the pole?
They are, so the shroud is mounted to the side, and then the antenna is mounted on top of the pole.
Right on top of the pole, huh? Okay, and the other thing that you said that bothered me is when, and I don't know about the new ones, but when the fellow talked to us, we said, because it was going to go in front of the elderly place on Ferry Street, we said, how about noise? And the first thing they said was, there's no noise to these things. And we said, oh, that's good. Now, you're saying that these new things will reduce the noise, but if there's no noise, what are you reducing?
I'm not,
You know?
I'm not sure how it was pitched originally. The equipment does make some noise because there are fans that run. They kick on when the equipment gets hot, with long, hot
Okay.
summer days. But the new equipment provides more space for the radios that are in there, so they are spaced further apart, and there's more airflow that allows it to not have to.
Okay.
So it's a passive cooling.
Yeah.
And then the technology of the shroud has a sound dampening to it as well. We've actually deployed this in Brookline for, there was a noise issue, there was a broken fan, it had been making some noise, so not only did we fix that, but we used this new shroud.
Okay. Are there other companies that are coming into Everett to install these type things?
So,
We heard one of them with truck transportation or something like that.
Counselor, I'm not aware of that, but to kind of build off the point that Amanda made, the existing equipment that's there today is the equipment that makes the noise, and the equipment that we're planning to add along with the shroud is actually silent. So we're actually putting additional sound dampening in to prevent that. I'm not aware of I'm assuming, to your question, whether or not others are doing this, I don't know.
Okay, one other thing, what's the temperature before the fans come on?
That I am not sure of, but I do believe we have an option to turn the fans down if they become an issue.
That's true. If there's ever an issue where there's too much noise and there's a complaint,
Just, if you would, send a communication to our clerk saying fans just come on when the temperature reaches 120 or whatever, okay? Thank you. Thank you very much,
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Del Sol.
Good evening, thanks for your patience. There was a company here before, that we talked earlier. Is there any danger, any radiation that comes off these antennas?
There are no health or safety effects from this equipment. We have to comply with FCC regulations on how much emissions can come off of the antennas, and we do comply with those. I have a copy of the emissions report if you would like it.
Sure. You put a warning sign up. I know the other one had a warning sign on the pole. So if someone climbs the pole and they're working near it, they're warned because of radiation. So if somebody climbed the pole and went near this antenna, is there a...
There will be proper signage on all of the poles, and the way that the emissions report is run, it's run in several different scenarios, whether a person is working on the pole, whether they're on the ground, or if they were in, say, in like an adjacent building. And everything is at the safe levels.
So walking by or being in front of Glendale Towers, we have the elderly there, it's not gonna, there's no danger at all. Just only if someone climbs it, which really isn't a danger, but you have to have a warning there.
Correct.
And how high, does it go to the top of the pole or how high off the
The
ground?
antennas are mounted to the top of the pole depending on the height of the utility pole. And then, so the antennas are 48 inches, which is what's currently there, so the height's not gonna change. And so whatever the type height is from there.
typically 38 to 40 feet off the ground.
Okay. So you really wouldn't hit a fan if you're walking by?
Well, the fans are in the shroud, which is the equipment box that's mounted to the side. So if you were standing right there and the fan was on, you may hear it.
Just hear a fan going. Okay, thank you.
See, there's no other
Thank you.
speakers.
Excuse customary thanks.
We have a motion to excuse customary thanks. Thank you. Your pleasure. Council Capone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move that we postpone this to our next meeting. I personally would like to go out to the addresses that are listed to take a look at it and see what the additional, there are 4 locations here that it's going from 48 inches to a 70-inch. Diameter is going from 8 inches to 18 inches. I'd like to just get a visual before I vote on it.
We have a motion to postpone this, been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you for coming up. Please, get the date of our next meeting from the clerk. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Clerk will resort back to the regular order of the meeting. 6. Postpone to the next meeting.
Thank you. Item number 6 is an order offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president to accept Village Fest donations in the amount of $4,522.
Accept the donation with a letter of thanks.
Accept the donation, letter of thanks, been seconded. All, clerk will read the roll.
Council Capone.
Yes.
Council Della Sola.
Yes.
Council DePiero.
Yes.
Councilor Hanlon.
Yes.
Councilor Matusky. Yes. Councilor McKinnon.
Yes.
Councilor Simonelli.
Yes.
President Napolitano.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
You've passed the item. Clerk will read item number 7.
Item number 7 is an order offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president. In order to transfer $44,000 from DPW executive salary account and $32,000 from the ISD salary account into the following accounts: solicitors' salaries $29,000, human resources salaries $15,000, and health and wellness salaries $32,000, for a total of $76,000.
Councilman DePiero.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is Mr. Demas present? Move to invite Mr. Demas before us.
Very briefly.
The motion to invite Ms. Demus before us, and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Good evening. Eric Demus, CFO.
Thank you, Mr. Demus. Just looking for a quick breakdown, the need, how many individuals in each department, and so forth.
Sure. Few moving pieces. This is not a new appropriation, it's a reappropriation, a reallocation of existing resources. There are no new personnel being added. It's a combination of a couple of things. Some personnel issues, which we're not at liberty to discuss at public meetings, but also a reallocation of resources. A lot of work that was done and has been going on since the city created the Office of Organizational Assessment. And what the goal has been is to put people in their strengths where their strengths are going to serve the city best. So there has been individuals that have moved between human resources and the Department of Public Works, as well as an expansion of some roles within the city solicitor's office. I think one of the things that you had just talked about earlier was the assistant city solicitor taking on more through the task force, the two-person task force, as well as the task force, the housing task force with ISD. And then there's been an individual in ISD that went to the wellness center.
That was my only question, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman McKinnon.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Demus. Was this in committee at all?
No.
Okay. So it never went to the committee?
No.
Ways and Means? All right. Thank you.
Councilman Hamlin. Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the CFO. Good evening. You mentioned a few things along with reallocation, moving departments, expansion of roles. There was something you said, personnel issues that can't be discussed. We have some issues going on with this, or?
I can't discuss.
That's a concern.
Well, and the reason why it can't be discussed is if it is either, a request from an employee, if we're trying to make some type of accommodation, if you have some type of disciplinary action. It's not a matter of that, we don't want to discuss it, but our employees have rights.
Okay. And with regards to these items, is it possible to get a specific line item of each position in the amount per position that we're looking at? Yeah, so an itemized breakdown, so I can know exactly where everything's going?
Sure, can we do positions rather than names?
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. My only thing is, until I see that, I wouldn't want to vote on it. So I'll leave it up to my colleagues to ask any other questions they might have, but that would be my only request. And I'll make that motion after, but I'd like to get a breakdown of positions and where the money is shifting. Again, no names necessary, but positions where the money is shifting and what we're looking at. And that way I could vote on it intelligently. So I'd appreciate that. I don't have any other questions.
Councilman McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, through you to Mr. Demus. Mr. Demus, this thing raised a lot of red flags to me, and it did since I saw the agenda on Thursday. Councilor Capone just hit on several of the same topics that I was going to hit on. Is it appropriate to have an executive discussion on this matter? Because we're talking about employees. The problem that I have, to be very frank, is the administration is making moves, doing different things. That's fine. That's your role. That's your responsibility. But now it comes into our role and our responsibility by transferring monies from one line item to another line item. So now it does become our business, and it now does become part of our responsibility and our duties as city councilors. And if it didn't, this piece wouldn't be before us. You guys would be able to make whatever lateral transfers you wanted or lateral shifts of employees, and it wouldn't be before us. The fact that it is now becomes our business, in my opinion, and it now becomes a discussion of who, if, and what, and why, in my opinion. If we can't discuss it here, wholeheartedly feel confident about that. But I do think that we should have more information. There is large sums of money here being transferred from one line item to another line item. You talked about the assistant city solicitor, who does a tremendous job, possibly getting extra monies due to that new committee that he's been appointed to. Is that accurate?
Not necessarily just that specific committee, but the additional responsibilities and the reallocation of resources within that office.
But was that the best And again, I don't want to signal that out because he's tremendous. He does
Sure.
a great job, and I really don't want to signal that out. But is that the best way to utilize his time, his abilities, his talents, his professionalism? Because I'll be honest with you, I was taken back when I heard that our city clerk and our assistant city solicitor, who are two very talented individuals, are out checking streetlights and checking double poles in our community. To be honest with you, it was almost laughable. So if our organizational assessor is thinking that that's the best way to utilize those two positions in some way, some form, it's almost laughable, to be honest with you, because you have two talents of pool that are now doing something that's not reasonable. So if that's into that portion of money, I'd like to know how much that breaks down to being. And is our city clerk also get an additional increase because of his duties in this new formed committee or responsibility? So I do think it should go to committee. I do think that there's a lot of questions that need to be asked. I'd make a motion that we send it to Ways and Means because it is the first time it's being introduced. It hasn't gone to committee, and there is a large sum of money that is on the table for things that have been transferred throughout the administration. Again, your responsibility, putting it before us becomes our responsibility, becomes our knowledge before we're voting on items. Thank you. I'm going to make a motion that we refer this to Ways and Means, seeing that there is
Are there any
a
other
large
questions
sum
of a guest?
Are there any further questions for Mr. Demas? Before we make a motion?
Mr. Demas.
Councilman McKinnon?
Thank you, Mr. President. To Mr. Demas. So just so that we have an idea of the totals on this, because I didn't do the math. Do you have totals on all these?
The grand total is $76,000.
Okay.
Broken out between the various departments. There are 4 departments involved.
Oh, I just seen it. Sorry, there was my question. It's right there. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little older now.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Demas. Okay, there's a motion to refer this to Ways and Means. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, on the motion?
I have another motion, Mr. President. Rather than referring it to a committee of a few, we asked the CFO if he could get us a breakdown, itemized breakdown of the positions. I think that we would be in a better position collectively as a body, once we had that information, to look at it, and at that point in time, if we thought it needed to go to a committee, or maybe if it needed to go into executive session, we could do that. Rather than putting it into a committee, I think we'd be better addressing this next meeting. So,
Okay, so your motion is for the information. What about the
we're
vote on the
postponing
piece?
the matter to our next meeting.
So the motion
Request
is-
the itemized information from our CFO.
So the motion is postpone this item to the next meeting, request the information that Council Capone has indicated. Do I have a second? Okay, so there's 2 motions before us. One is to go to Ways and Means, the other one is to postpone it.
Mr. President, on the motion?
Councilman,
Mr. President, on the motion?
The council speak.
It bothers me that I'm going to withdraw my motion because I want to do what is the happy medium to my body. But we're going to take $76,000 and send it to a committee for further information, but not take $2.5 million and discuss it as a committee of the whole. But that's my statement. I'll withdraw my motion for Committee on Ways and Means.
All right, so there's a motion to postpone this to the next meeting, where Mr. Demas will provide us with the additional information requested. It's been a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 10.
Excuse me, there's a young lady in the audience that's been waiting, if I could mention, I don't know if she realized she had to sign in, but item number 20 she's here on regarding the charter school. If you could take that item.
Councilman, the motion is, well, clerk will read item number 20, please.
Item number 20. Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor Michael J. McLaughlin that the property owners and the school administration of the Pioneer Charter School appear at the next council meeting to discuss traffic problems in the village area.
Mr. President, on the motion? I apologize, there's a typo here. This should have gone directly to, in my public safety, public service. Some of the residents were not properly notified that would have liked to have been here this evening. I think it is a lengthy discussion that needs to be had, and I don't think that we need to spend the time here this evening. So I'm going to make a motion that we refer this to public safety, public service, government operations, so that we can have a lengthier discussion on this piece.
Is there a second?
On that motion.
Have a second on the motion, Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I've received some calls regarding, I know it's a new concept, a new school, but we also have the Pioneer Charter School on Summer Street. Now, I'm getting complaints from people on Argyle, Plummer. I'd like to, if I could, include, I mean, the days of kids walking to school with their parents are kind of like over. And, I go by the Tyleston Street Elementary School quite a bit, and they valet park, and I know life has become difficult for a lot of people, but residents do deserve a little respect, and, these schools are very good, and there's a waiting list to get into them in the whole 9 yards. They actually get educated, and all our schools are good in Everett, but the thing is, you've got to have a little respect for the neighborhood, and I think if Pioneer Charter School was to reach out to the parents and let them know that, we all have to respect one another, I think that's very important, because they're parking in people's driveway. A gentleman on Argyle Street, and Councilman McKinnon's got his in-laws on that street, and it's become a problem this year. I never heard of it in the last few years. So can we add the Pioneer School on Summer Street?
Mr. President, on the motion.
You would need to make a motion. Councilman McLaughlin would like to respond.
He's the sponsor.
Mr. President, on the motion, I'm going to amend this by adding the Pioneer Charter School on Summer Street as well, and add Councilor Matusky as a co-sponsor to the item.
Thank you. I want to thank Councilman McLaughlin.
Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion is to send this to Public Safety, Public Service. There was a second. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will revert back to regular order of business.
Take item number 16 from the calendar, please. Motion. Item number 16 from the calendar, please.
We have a motion to suspend the rules. Take item number 16. 16?
16.
The calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 16.
Item number 16 is an ordinance offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president. In accordance with the provisions of Section 12 of the zoning ordinances of the City of Everett, the City Council hereby amends the zoning ordinance as follows. Section 32, inclusionary zoning, that the affordable housing percentages be amended to encourage development. This was amended at the last meeting for enrollment. We are voting on ordainment as amended this evening.
Favorable action on the motion.
As amended.
A motion for favorable action. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilman Capone on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. On page 3, it's section 4, subpart E. I am not 100% sure that's exactly the way it went down, but quite honestly, in fairness to everyone, a lot went down that night. So the only thing that I will say to my colleagues, I don't have a problem with having a reduction if there is use limitation due to contamination, et cetera. But not every single level of contamination rises to the level where we should have automatic reductions. So what I would ask the body to do is amend that part so that we, at the very end of that paragraph E, where it says, shall be automatic, get rid of that and change it to may be permitted in the discretion of the planning board. The reason being is if it's automatic, we have no say. A developer comes in, can have a 500-unit building that goes in, they can have minimal impact, and then it turns into 25 units. You might have a developer that can come in and can maintain the full level of affordable housing that's required. So by making it automatic, I think we're doing a disservice to our community. So what I'd like to do is leave the discretion with the planning board. I have no problem with them being able to reduce it down to up to 5%. So it can go from the requirement down to 5%, but rather than making it mandatory, I would rather leave it in their discretion because I don't think there's a need for us to cut our wrist. If you have a developer that comes in, can afford to do it, is happy to do it, there's no reason why we should turn around and reduce the amount of affordable housing we're trying to create for this community. So my motion would be to amend it to insert the language I had said.
Is there a second?
I'd second that.
Second. Councilman
On the motion.
McLaughlin on the motion?
On the motion, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, on the motion, it raises serious concern to me because it allows the planning board to have a significant amount of influence on who is and who is not certified or qualified or labeled under this provision. It allows administrations, it allows people to influence decisions where if we're going to really make a choice and we're going to bring development into the community, it should be black and white. It should be a concrete decision. We should be, this is the rules, this is how we're going to move forward, this is how we bring development into the city. It shouldn't be, well, I know this one or I know that one, or that's what this is allowing, in my opinion, to keep that window of opportunity open for administrations and influence to be had beyond a reasonable approach. So I respectfully disagree with my good colleague from Ward 1, and I will be voting no, not to amend this, because I think that it leaves too much of a gray area on interpretation of what is and what is not the rules when we're talking about affordable housing in our community, and how to bring it in to service the best of our needs.
Councilman DeFlorio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also disagree with that, because what's going to happen is, if there's a piece of land that's contaminated, people aren't even going to come in and buy it, because just knowing they have to go through the process of going through the planning board. Business people don't want to go through that anymore. They don't. Their time is valuable. They want to know that if they buy this piece of land, they spend $10 million, $20 million, that they have to go in, they have to clean it, and they want to know exactly what they can build, and that's it. This is why we've stopped the growth in the city all these years. We don't welcome the contractors in the city. We give them a hard time. They have to go in front of the planning board for everything. Spend 6 hours in there. And how about when you go in front of the planning board and there isn't a quorum? Then you have to wait next month to go in front of them again. It's ridiculous. It should be automatic. In order for you to get that automatic, you have to hold a certificate that that land is contaminated. So we've already stopped the growth. 20% wasn't working. We've gotten 0. Really? It should have gone to 10%. But we took 15%, but the automatic should definitely not be taken out. I'm telling this board, please do not take it out, because the growth is going to stop, has stopped, it's been proven. And it's going to continue to stop if you take that automatic out. Thank you.
Councilman Matusky.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with the councilwoman. We went over this at the last meeting. We did compromise, at least I did.
Yeah, compromise.
I wanted it to be 10% because I realize what these developers are going to have to deal with. They're not the Wynn Casino developers who have unlimited resources, financial resources. Market Forge property is just sitting there waiting to blossom and be something decent. And then hopefully the other contaminated property, all these scrap metal places are all contaminated. I can tell you that right now. Everything on the Parkway has been touched by the industry that we had there for so many years. But I did compromise at the last meeting to 15%, and I wanted a 10%. I want to encourage the guy that built the contractor that built the Charleston Chew, the Batchyard property, as our community development gentleman said, I believe it was him or the building inspector, director, said they went to Revere with the project. You know, and then I was reminded of the time we voted for the new high school. And we're talking about affordable housing, right? Part of the deal was, and that new high school only won by 1 vote, just for those who weren't around at that time. The old high school, a portion of that property was supposed to be forever residents, senior citizens on a fixed income. We haven't built anything, the city, in years. Other cities do build units, affordable housing units. You know, and I realize we're landlocked here. But, you know, I don't want people to forget, because I have a pretty good memory when I vote for something as important as the high school. The old high school, for those who have a short memory, and that property was supposed to be, 20% of that property was supposed to be developed into affordable housing for Everett residents, studios and stuff like that, about 50 units. We haven't added to our inventory here in the city. And I think everybody knows that I served on the housing. And I've said this before, I get a lot of calls about housing every day. If I'm out in this, can you help my grandmother? Can you help my mother? Can you help? And it's a sad, forget about the family units. You can put that out there. These are single people who can't afford to live anywhere. So I understand the concept that the councilman's trying to bring out, but we do have to encourage, for the betterment of this community, to clean up these contaminated sites and have something decent like going on where the old Harley Davidson was. So I'm in favor of voting for what we did last week. I don't want to amend this anymore and tinker with it. If we did it, I'd rather go down to 10%, to be honest with you, but that's not going to happen because this thing will die a natural death, and we don't want that to happen either. So I'm going to stick with what we did the last meeting. I think we talked about it quite a bit. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, and this will be my final word on it. And I appreciate my colleagues' input. I understand exactly what you're saying. I don't think this is going to kill growth. You're basically giving a window of discretion to the planning board. So rather than having a contractor or a developer come in and automatically maximize their profit, they have to present their case to the planning board. And then based on the information that's presented, they then can get a waiver of the amount of units. As far as concrete and black and white, the bottom line here is that what we're doing is we're reducing affordable housing by making it automatic. We're actually reducing the ability for affordable housing because we're not going to give any discretion. It's automatic. You get a break. You don't have to provide those extra units. The bottom line for us as a council is to protect our community, not worry about profitability of a developer. They're going to make plenty of money. And if it's a hardship, they have the ability to go in front of the planning board and make their case. And if they make their case, it could be reduced. But I don't understand why we would willingly say, you know what? We don't need those extra houses in here. Yeah, go ahead, do it the way you want to do it, max your profit, let's minimize the ability of affordable housing coming in, and go from there. It's foolish to me. But whatever the will of the body is, it is.
Excuse me.
We have a call for the question. Right now, the motion in front of you is, the motion is to amend this.
Favorable action.
Okay.
Right?
Motion is to amend the item.
Not amend it. Okay, so we
There is
vote
an
on that
amendment that
first.
we
There
have
is
to
an
vote on
amendment.
first, correct.
You vote on the amendment
State what
first.
the amendment is, Mr. President, please.
Would you like me to
Yes.
clarify it? So currently, the piece reads at the end, the last part from the last meeting. Sorry. Give me one moment. It says, at the end of 4, subpart E, the last line there says, let me read the whole thing. For project proposing a total of 10 or more dwelling units, and where the project site requires environmental remediation, or is located within a FEMA flood district, or both, the planning board may, in its discretion, authorize up to 5% reduction in the number of affordable units required under this ordinance, and for any site which has a recorded activity and a use limitation, a reduction to 5% shall be automatic. Is that what you have, Mr. Councilor Capone? That is what the current piece reads. Councilor Capone's amendment would change that by removing the reduction to 5% shall be automatic, and it shall be at the discretion of the planning board. Is that correct, Councilor? That is the amendment. So we're changing shall be automatic to the discretion of the planning board is what the amendment.
Okay, on the amendment, clerk will read, all in favor? Opposed? Chair's in doubt. I'm going to ask you to raise your hands. All in favor of the amendment, raise your hand to position aye. Opposed? The amendment has failed.
Favorable action.
The motion favorable action on the, to ordain the item, it's been seconded.
Yeah. It's as amended as of the
Previously.
10/22 meeting.
Okay, clerk will read the roll.
Just want to make sure it's clear that we do have an amendment. Favorable action is amended for ordainment. Counselor Capone.
Yes.
Counselor Della Sola.
Yes.
Counselor DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counselor DePiero.
Yes.
Counselor Hanlon.
Yes.
Counselor Marchese. Counselor Matusky.
Yes.
Counselor McKinnon.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli.
Yes.
And President Napolitano.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
Don't, yeah.
Motion for
Reconsideration.
We have a motion for reconsideration. Clerk will read the roll.
Counselor Capone.
No.
Counselor Della Sola.
No.
Counselor DeFlorio.
No.
Counselor DePiero.
No.
Counselor Hanlon.
Yes.
Counselor Marchese. Counselor Matusky.
No.
Counselor McKinnon. Counselor Simonelli.
No.
McLaughlin, I'm sorry, Counselor McLaughlin.
No.
Thank you, that's what I was going to ask. Counselor McKinnon, no. Counselor Simonelli.
No.
And President Napolitano.
No.
1 yea, 9 nays, Mr. President.
Okay, reconsideration has failed.
Mr. President, I move we suspend the rules and take items 10 through 14 collectively.
We have a motion to take items number 10 through 14 collectively. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read the items.
Mr. President, what item was it? Revert to regular order?
10 through 14 collectively.
Okay.
If you read the items.
Yes, sir. All right. Item number 10, Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor Fred Capone that representatives from Community Development and the Mayor's Office appear at our next council meeting to discuss the raised sidewalks in Everett Square. Item 11, Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor Stephen Simonelli to have the Director of CHA appear at the next Government Operations meeting to discuss ways of opening more parking spaces at the Whitton Hospital. Item number 12 is a resolution offered by Councilors Michael McLaughlin, Fred Capone, Richard Della Sola, that the DPW remove debris on Floyd Street to add more parking spots. Item number 13 is a resolution offered by Councilor Michael J. McLaughlin that a representative from Lime Bike appear at the next council meeting to discuss the replacement of the bikes during the winter months. And item number 14 is a resolution offered by Councilor Anthony DePiero, respectfully requesting Chief of Staff Kevin O'Donnell, John Tarko of Encore Resorts Boston Harbor, representatives from the Fire Department and Everett Firefighters Local 143 appear at the next Government Operations Committee meeting to discuss concerns surrounding the Resorts Fire Command Center.
Accept the committee reports, refer back to sponsor.
Expect motion to accept the committee reports and refer back to sponsor in second. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 15.
Item number 15 is a Committee on Community and Business Development report, resolution offered by Councilor Wayne Matusky and Councilor Stephen Simonelli that vetoes auto repair correct its operation on Villa Ave.
We are granted further time, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's great.
Councilman DeFlorio.
I'm sorry. We granted further time in committee. I believe we gave them 30 days, and we're going to invite the guests to come back up again.
So this item is still in committee?
It's still in committee. We need further, we need further time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's still in committee, it hasn't come out. Yeah.
Okay, seeing as this item is still in committee, I'm going to motion this as no action.
Okay. So
Okay. Clerk will read item number 17. Oh, sorry. 18.
Is an ordinance offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president. Be it ordained by the Everett City Council that the revised ordinances of the City of Everett be amended as follows. Chapter 15 is hereby amended by deleting the chapter in its entirety and replacing it with new Chapter 15 as follows. Chapter 15, sanitary sewers and storm drains. This has already been enrolled, posted, and this is up for ordainment.
Favorable action.
We have a motion for favorable action, number 18. Do I have a second? All in favor? Clerk will read the roll.
Yep. This is item number 18 for ordainment. Counsel Capone.
Yes.
Counsel Della Sola.
Yes.
Counselor DePiero.
Yes.
Counselor Hanlon.
Yes.
Counselor Matusky.
Yes.
Counselor McKinnon.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin. Counselor Simonelli.
Yes.
And President Napolitano.
Yes.
9 yeas, 0 nays. Mr. President.
Okay, you've passed that item. Clerk will read item number 19.
Item number 19 is an ordinance offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president. Be it ordained by the Everett City Council that the revised ordinances of the City of Everett be amended as follows. Article 1, General Provisions. Article 2, Discharges to the Municipal Separate Stormwater System, MS4. Article 3, Stormwater Management and Land Disturbance. This is also up for ordainment and has been posted in accordance with the law.
Second motion.
A motion for favorable action. It's been seconded. Clerk will read the roll.
Counsel Capone.
Yes.
Counsel Della Sola.
Yes.
Counsel DePiero.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Matusky.
Yes.
Counsel McKinnon.
Yes.
Counsel McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli.
Yes.
And President Napolitano.
Yes.
9 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
You've passed item number 18. Clerk will read item number 21.
Item number 21, Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor Michael J. McLaughlin that the sign division place a no parking from here to corner sign at Bennett Street at the intersection of Bennett Street and Ferry Street, and I believe this has to go on Ferry Street.
Okay. Counsel McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, on the motion, City Clerk just clarified that. It's actually for the Ferry Street side, so the residents on the corner of Bennett and Ferry Street, 520 Ferry Street, said that when they come to the bottom of the hill, there's some trucks that are parking right on the left-hand side. They can't make a left out to head towards Malden onto Ferry Street. There's some trucks parking there on the corner, and I apologize, Councilman McKinnon, I should have called you about this, and it kind of happened fast last week. But it's to be placed on Ferry Street so that they can see the blind spot coming off onto Ferry Street on the left-hand side. So I would make a motion that we amend this and add Councilor McKinnon as a co-sponsor, and it reads no parking from here to corner sign on Ferry Street, striking out the word Bennett Street at the intersection of Bennett and Ferry Street. I'll make that as a motion.
As a co-sponsor. It's been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, we've amended it. Your pleasure. Councilman?
I apologize, Mr. President. Can we refer this to, I don't know if it needs to go to traffic, your recommendation goes to traffic, or it goes to the sign shop?
It doesn't go to the sign shop because it is a 20-foot from corner, and it doesn't need special approval from the traffic.
Correct.
So we'll make a motion, we send this to sign division and see if they can give us an update in 30 days with the response back of work completed.
Counselor, do you want to just personally, sorry, Mr. President, just send to you directly and the council not placed back on the agenda,
Yeah,
right?
correct. That's correct.
wanna
That's correct,
clarify.
Mr. Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Could I please ask you a quick question on item number 17? I'd like to make a motion to reconsider it. The sponsor would like to make some chances, and I'd like to give him that courtesy. So if we could reconsider it and lay it over to the next meeting, I think that would be, is that okay? I'm going to ask the clerk.
I'll make a motion, I second the motion.
So I'm going to, give me 2 seconds to take a look at that, and then there's a two-part answer probably. Just give me 1 second to make sure.
He wants to change some wording, so I want to give him that
So-
courtesy.
We did not
Yes.
reconsider it, so you
But
can
we
reconsider it.
invite- Wait a minute.
One, yes, you can reconsider it, but please note that, yes, you can refer it to the next piece, next agenda. But if you change the intent, I do have to repost it. So even though it may go to the next meeting, if he's going to make amendments, well, whoever is going to make amendments, then you will still not be able to ordain it. We have to enroll it, then I have to ordain it. I just want to
That's
give you,
correct.
I want to
Okay.
just
But I
explain
think
it,
I think
the
the sponsor
process.
should have the courtesy, and we also should give the courtesy to invite Mr. Soper up.
Yeah, no,
We-
that's fine.
Invite the people up to speak.
I just want
Okay?
And the fire chief.
All right, well,
Yeah.
let's, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's
I'm
bring the
sorry.
piece before us.
I make a
Okay,
motion
so
to
right now, there's a
reconsider.
motion to reconsider, right?
Item number 17.
Second the motion.
Clerk will read the roll.
This is for reconsideration.
Yes.
Yes.
One moment, please. Counselor Capone.
Yes.
Counselor Della Sola.
Yes.
Counselor DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counselor DePiero.
All right, what's another month?
Counselor DePiero. Counselor Hanlon. Counselor Marchese. Counselor McKinnon.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
I missed Counselor Matusky. Sorry, Counselor, my fault. And Counselor Simonelli.
Yes.
And President Napolitano.
Yes.
That would be
Okay, so you've
10 years.
reconsidered the piece. It's now before you.
Make a motion to lay this, postpone this to our next meeting.
Second the motion.
You had more you wanted to add. Is that correct?
Yes, and invite, we're going to invite the fire chief, the building inspector, and
Director.
and a director of ISD.
Okay, so there's a motion right now to postpone this till the next meeting, invite the fire chief, ISD director, who else?
The building inspector.
Building inspector. Okay. Counsel Capone on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I applaud the council for bringing it back. I've worked on this with council, with the sponsor for a while. There's some good language in here. There's that one word, I think, that makes it very dangerous. So I'm glad that it's back. The only thing I point out to this body is that we could have had this done tonight. We had these people waiting here this evening for it, but we call for the question. The problem is, this body is using call for the question to have no debate. The purpose of call for the question, Mr. President, is to stop debate when something has gone on too long. But for too many pieces, this body wants no information and wants to vote. So on this particular piece, I'm glad it's back in front of us. I am sorry we're now going to have to drag our fire chief back to have him sit all night long until we can get to him and those other individuals. So I'm glad it's back because there are some very good points in this legislation. So
I concur. I'm already on record for how I feel about that particular parliamentary procedure. Counsel McLaughlin.
Again, I echo the comments of Councilor Capone. I actually did not vote on this tonight because, I don't have enough information. I wasn't at the committee meeting. I don't have the concrete. There is some good word in there, some good language, but you know what? To get some clarification from the professionals that represent our community, the fire chief, the building inspector, the ISD director, I'm not going to take a blind vote in these chambers. I'm not going to take a vote because I personally think something. We're all here working for the people of Everett. We all do that every day, right? So hear from our professionals, hear from the people that are making salaries to help us make decisions that keep our community safe. I believe that it was the right decision. I voted 2 weeks ago for it. But not to hear the members tonight, I thought I was doing a disservice. And that's why I could not vote tonight for this piece. Because not having them give us their professional opinions was a disservice to our community.
Councilman DeFlorio.
All due respect to my colleagues, this was in committee for what, 6 weeks? The committee, probably even longer. Those committees are all televised. You go on the internet and watch them. How many times do we have to bring these people up constantly for 3-4 hours, okay? And then when the budget comes, we don't want to pay them. So, I mean, that's what he wanted. The sponsor wanted to call for the question. Give him the courtesy. He called for the question, that's it.
Well, then that's the end result.
Right.
That's
That's fine.
unfortunate.
Let's
So
call
we
for the
can always
question now,
fix
Mr.
We
President.
can always fix the end results.
Okay, there's been a request for call for the question, okay? So so right now, the motion before you is to postpone this for 2 weeks, invite the fire chief, building inspector, and ISD director. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 22.
22, right?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 22. Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor Wayne A. Matusky that the city arborist and wire department consult with National Grid, Comcast, RCN, and other utility companies before they trim any city trees due to the bad and unsafe conditions left after trimming.
Councilor Matusky.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I discussed this matter briefly at our last meeting, but I've done some research, and, you know, the next time National Grid comes up here, or Comcast, or one of these utility companies, to ask for a permit to do some work on wires and the poles, we also have to now take in consideration the butchering of the trees in this community. They have, you know, and I've only done a small survey of Everett, okay, my own particular neighborhood, School Street, and I can remember about 10 years ago, these orange trucks appeared mysteriously all over the community, and you hear the grinding of the limbs being cut off, and what are they doing up there? They're not city workers. Well, come to find out, about 10 years ago, the city of Watertown, or is it a town, Watertown, sued. These utilities have the right of way of easements of these poles. They have a right to protect their wires. But this, we'll say the city of Watertown took the utilities to court and actually won because they had butchered so many trees that the residents were quite upset. Needless to say, if anybody else notices, I think that you would if you take a ride around our community and just take a look at the one 2 doors down from my house. It's not even a nice looking tree anymore. Okay, it's actually ugly. They've butchered these beautiful trees that take years to become mature, you know, and we pay for them. And I'm not sure if we can get reimbursement, but in the future of any work being done, not only is it unsightly what they've done here, it's a safety thing. Wherever these trees have been trimmed, you'll always see a branch in any high winds. And it's putting our tree division, our public works employees at a risk. It's putting our homeowners at a risk. The mayor and I had a brief discussion a few weeks ago on this matter. He is going to evaluate every tree in the city. And there are plenty dead ones, let me tell you, from what I can see. But I spoke to the city solicitor, Attorney Mejia, tonight. She is going to look into what Watertown did, and you know, I don't think we can get reimbursed for what damage has been done. But for these the mayor has said that he is going to plant hundreds of trees in the next year or so. I want to make sure that nobody can destroy them. I noticed Main Street has got all kinds of new trees on it, and it takes about 5 or 10 years to actually look like a shade tree. They're small now, but I don't want some wire utility coming by and just randomly cutting them apart and destroying them. So with that being said, I'm going to refer this to the city solicitor, who was in the chambers, and arborist. We have an arborist that's taking a major role now, from what the mayor told me, Mr. Liberty, and also the wire department. I don't want anybody trimming our trees without permission from the arborist. Okay, because seriously, there's been some serious damage done to our trees, and it's sickening. So I'd like to refer it to those 3 departments, and thank you.
Okay, we're motion to refer this to the city solicitor and the city arborist. It's been seconded.
On the motion?
Councilman DeFlorio from the Golf Club.
These trees they're very low. I mean, I'm 5 feet tall, and if I have an umbrella, I get stuck on the tree. They should be automatically be trimming these trees every spring or every fall. There's got to be something that has to be placed where they do get trimmed every year at a certain time. We shouldn't be calling them to say, go trim this tree, go trim that tree. So, that's my recommendation, is also, if the council doesn't mind, the sponsor, is to for the mayor to put a team together and trim these trees every year at a certain time. I know they have to be,
If I could, right now,
In the
the
fall.
resolution is regarding the utility companies from trimming the trees. That is a good suggestion, but it's a separate item.
that's true. Okay, thank you.
Council McLaughlin.
Mr. President, thank you. On this motion, I have a piece in public safety currently that was offered about 2 months ago, similar item, because I agree with Councilman Matusky, as I spent a lot of time this summer out exercising in the street. You see that these utility companies are not trimming our trees properly. They don't care what the tree looks like. They're just looking to get the job satisfactory and end it. So it's definitely a major issue. I do have a piece in public safety. I had Greg St. Louis up here and some other folks to talk about this. They told us that they would give us a breakdown of the trees that have been touched, the trees that need to be touched. As Councilor DeFlorio said, there's so many low-hanging trees on this. I'm going to hopefully get my piece out of committee, refer it back to sponsor, because I think Councilor Matusky is on track with this. But I think that come next season, we need to really discuss maintenance of our trees in the city overall, because it's a major problem, and we're not properly taking care of the trees in our city, and we're allowing people to come in and, again, run row in our city. Again, do whatever they want to do, and nobody's holding their feet to the fire on any of this stuff. We need to start holding people accountable in the city for our property. We need to hold them accountable. The trees are our trees in the city. We need to hold them accountable. So I'm going to take my piece out of committee, hopefully at the next meeting, refer it back to sponsor, and I want to say that Councilman Matusky is right on track with this piece. It needs to be resolved. It will be resolved in the spring because this winter is coming and it will be over at that point.
Okay, you have a motion before you to refer this to City Solicitor. Can we continue with the meeting, please? Okay, so we have refer this to the arborist, the City Solicitor. All in favor? And the Wire Department. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 23.
Item number 23. Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor Michael J. McLaughlin that the Chief Procurement Officer and the Parking Clerk appear at the next meeting to discuss problems with the parking meter machines.
Council McLaughlin.
So, Mr. President, I'm going to just do exactly what this says and refer this to committee. A lot of discussion that needs to be had on these meters.
Which committee?
Sorry, I'll refer it to public safety. I thought it was listed. I'm sorry, public safety, public service, to discuss this.
We have a motion to send this to Public Safety, Public Service. It's been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 24.
Item number 24 is an ordinance offered by Councilor Peter A. Napolitano as president. An ordinance to standardize procedures for licensing and permits issued under the authority of the City Council, which comes under my office. Would you like me to briefly tell you what this is?
Please.
It is, Mr. Flood, our consultant, has done a great job with our licensing. This is standardizing all the licensing permits, the procedures, what we need to collect. You know, there's REAP attestations, there's Corey checks for new operators, there's a bunch of different things that we have to collect every license and permit. You know, sign-offs from the fire, ISD, some need health. So this is standardizing the procedure, so we know on all licenses what we have to do instead of coming up with it as we go. So it's going to standardize it, make it much more streamlined, and it's going to coincide with the new tracking and computer program that ISD already has that I'm piggybacking off of as of January. So it will help me a lot, and it's already written. I think the legislative aid sent it to you. This is for enrollment. This is the first part.
Mr. President?
Council Matusky.
I noticed there's, item number 24 to item 28, there's changes to our charter here. Are these all in the same?
These are not changes to our charter. These are items that were originally in our rules, and what we've been working all year to do is to move things that shouldn't be on our rules and moving them and creating ordinances. A good example of that is the signage. It was in the council rules, but we had no authority.
A sign-in sheet?
No. Signs.
Awnings and
dictating
signs.
awnings and colors of that
Oh, I
nature.
see.
So we've taken that out of our rules. There's now an ordinance. So this is on the same track. We're trying to clean up, right, we're working between the work that Legislative Affairs has done to tighten up our rules
So this was in
with
committee.
moving things out that shouldn't be in our rules and creating proper ordinances.
And when do we get a hard copy of this?
You should
It
have
was
already had it,
actually
but I will give
emailed-
you another copy.
Right.
If it
I
was
never
not
got
sent, if it
one.
wasn't sent to you, I'll make sure it is.
Okay,
But I
matter
can
of
give it
fact.
to you.
The notes I have is that the Legislative Aid had emailed copies out to everybody.
No, Mr. President, I'm not done yet.
No, please, go ahead.
Email is fine, but I really prefer to have it written on paper, mailed to me like it's been done in the past. And as a matter of fact, there's quite a few things that look like they're being changed here. I don't know anything about these. The
This is actually
newspaper
completely new.
boxes to the lodging house. I mean, you know, you say that this wasn't in committee or was in committee, I don't know.
These were not in
was not.
committee.
All right,
If you
so-
feel that they belong in committee, you can
I
refer them.
personally feel that way, and I know that a couple of my colleagues feel the same way. You know, to digest and see. Mr. Flood, is he on the payroll at this point? Mr. Flood is?
He's working as a
He's
contractor.
helping me as a contractor.
Oh, I see. Oh, I know he's very astute in these matters, but I'd like to have it on, so I can read exactly what I'm voting on. You know, email is great, but, you know, there's something can be said for the old-fashioned, you know, you can look at it. You know, and I want to have it in paper, either mailed to me or put in my mailbox. Thank you.
Counsel Capone.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's an excellent point that my colleague brings up. All these are new. I don't know where the other pieces are going to go. This wasn't in committee, although Mr. Flood is very talented. I have every confidence in him. I would want to make sure that our colleagues had the opportunity to fully read it. So rather than vote on this evening, I don't know that it necessarily needs to go to committee. I would just ask that we postpone it to our next meeting and give everyone an opportunity to review it and then have whatever questions they have at our next meeting.
Okay, if that's a motion, is there a second? Okay, we have a motion to postpone this till the next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
I mean, don't forget the city solicitor will be here, who's already reviewed it, so she can answer questions. I'm here, and Mr. Flood will probably be here also.
Clerk will read item number 25.
Item number 25 is Mr. President, is an ordinance offered by Council Anthony DePiero, an ordinance to better regulate lodging established licenses issued under the authority of the city council.
Counsel McLaughlin?
Mr. President, on the motion, I also, although I think I understand it, I'd like to see something in black and white. I'd like to see a hard copy just so that I can fully understand the good intention that Council DePiero has on all of these. I think we should lay all of these over for 2 weeks so that we can review each of these and be prepared in 2 weeks to vote on all of these.
Yep, so I'm going to explain. The other two have are procedural, and we can't do that, but I'll explain that.
Okay, so
when
we
go
have
through.
item number 25. There's a motion to postpone this to our next meeting. Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 26.
Yeah, Mr. President, can I move to take those three, the next three collectively, if they're all going to have the same fate?
They can't have the same fate by law. 25 and 26 cannot. They have to go to planning by our ordinances and rules. Those are very specific.
You mean
26 and 27, you mean, Mr.
I'm
Chairman?
sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't check off the right one.
So
26 and 27.
My motion is for 25 and
Yep, you can do that.
28 collectively.
Because of their referrals.
All right, which item is in front of us?
Yeah, we haven't read anything, Mr. President, so it's your choice. They're asking to take 26 and 27 collectively.
All right, we have a motion to take 26 and 27 collectively. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
I got to read it first. Item number 26, Mr. President, is ordinance offered by Council Anthony DePiero, an ordinance to amend Section 6 of the zoning ordinances. Item number 27, Mr. President, is an ordinance offered by Council Anthony DePiero, an ordinance adding a new Section 19A to the zoning ordinances.
Mr.
Yes.
Councilman Councilman DePiero, you have the floor.
No, go ahead. Okay.
Councilman DeFlorio?
I understand this has to go in front of the zoning board, and I don't have an issue with it, but if we're gonna make, this is what happens, we bounce things back and forth, okay? We don't know what's going to the zoning boards. We don't have a copy of this. So why don't we get a copy? Let's make the changes before we send it to the zoning board. So when it comes back, I don't want to spend 3 hours on it.
I do agree in some ways, but that's not what the law says.
No, I understand what the law
The law says you have to send it
says.
to them. And they make the recommendations because that's their job, and then they
Then it
refer
reverts
back to
back
you
to us
for
to make the
approval of
decision.
theirs or to change it. That's how the law.
I understand that, but maybe we can give them ideas. I understand the
you know,
law.
I understand, but that we can't, unless you're drafting it. So just so you know, these come from the planning department. Our Tony Souza, these all come through Tony Souza, our planning
I
director.
understand, but if it's in front of us and we said to Tony Souza, we don't agree with this, I think this is wrong. Maybe the zoning board can understand to either remove it or fix it, instead of coming in front of us and spending another 3 hours on it. Because this is what we do. We bounce back and forth, and we don't know what's in front of us. What do we send it to the zoning board? Does anybody know what we're sending? I have no idea what I'm sending to the zoning board, so how can I vote on it? What is it? What do we send it to the zoning board?
Postpone it to our next meeting. Can we have a hard copy of it, Bill? That's all we should do, all right.
Okay, then we can send it to the zoning
Make a
board.
motion.
So I make a motion to postpone it to our
One
next
second,
meeting.
let's make sure we've got the procedure correct.
I don't care what the procedure is.
We're checking the charter, that's what governs how we operate. So
Point of
just keep in mind.
information while our clerk is doing that, Mr. President.
Counsel Capone.
I think my colleague's frustration is that we have no idea what we're sending. You've got items, okay. Well, the thing is, you have items 20, 24 through 28.
Okay.
And we have
Counselor
absolutely,
Capone has the floor. Pay attention, please.
we have items 24 through 28 that are in front of us for the very first time, that have a sentence, and we have no idea what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if not at any other time, when you are first presented with information, you need it to know what the next step is.
Mm-hmm.
So I wholeheartedly support my colleague.
Well, again, clerk is looking up the correct procedure when something comes toward, that needs to go to the planning board first. And remember, the planning board is not passing this, they are making a recommendation based on it. So it will be back before us with their recommendation in detail. Okay,
Mr. President, on the-
10-minute break while we sort that out. I call for a recess.
26 and 7 are before us.
All right, items number 26 and 27 are before us. We did check the charter. Rule 12 of the city charter and Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, very clear. On the first reading of a proposed ordinance or zoning, it immediately goes to the planning board. So that's the only choice you have on
So
this,
moved.
at this
Yep.
point.
And
Okay.
Just a point of information on it, no, and I understand that, and that's fine, but I think it would present a little more comfort, at least to myself, I'm sure my colleagues, if we could make sure that our administrative assistant is getting the information to us, so we know exactly what we're sending. I understand our hands are tied, it's got over, but I have no idea what we're sending to the
I
to the
fully agree
planning
with
board.
you. We will address that tomorrow. Okay? So has the motion been made?
It was, they said so moved, someone said second. I
Okay,
just
so we
need
have a
to
motion to send
vote.
this to the planning board.
I got that.
It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 28.
And that was on 26 and 7, just so you know. Item number 28, Mr. President, is an order offered by Councilor Anthony DePiero, an order adopting a moratorium on news racks.
Move to postpone so my colleagues have the courtesy to reread what was sent out to them.
Okay, so we have a motion to postpone item number 28
actually-
to the next meeting.
Could I make just a suggestion, since it hasn't been, all right, you know what, that's better.
It's been seconded. All in favor? Councilman Matusky?
Thank you, Mr. President. To the sponsor, I haven't noticed any news rags. As a matter of fact, I've seen, like, the Boston Herald doesn't put them out anymore. If I could ask the sponsor, through you, Mr. President.
Sure, by all means.
Is there something I don't know about? I don't see them around. I see them in Boston, of course, but.
If I may, Mr. President?
Please.
Counselor, it's more of a preemptive strike, so to speak. If you think when the resort does open, I can imagine that whole lower strip lined with racks and different things, and they hand out all kinds of pamphlets on the Vegas Strip, and we want to control what's handed out down there. So that's the motive behind it.
And I appreciate your comparison to the line to the Vegas Strip. When I'm out there in February, I'll let you know
We're
whether
getting
that's
there, little by
accurate or
little.
not. All right, so the motion is to postpone this till the next meeting. All in favor? Excuse me, Councilman McLaughlin, I apologize.
No problem at all, Mr. President. Honestly, I was just going to say that, you know what, I'm going to save my comment. Actually, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to postpone this till our next meeting. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Clerk will read item number 29.
Item number 29, the final piece is, Mr. President, a resolution offered by Councilors Fred Capone, Rosa DeFlorio, and Michael McLaughlin, that the Office of Veteran Services, in his honor the mayor, consider dedicating a memorial square to Airman First Class John Egan.
Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. President. John Egan was a great guy with deep Everett roots. I know he was a friend to all of us, so before I send this out before I make a motion to send it to the Office of Veteran Services and the mayor, if there are any colleagues here who want to be added as a sponsor, I'm more than happy to do it, so.
Same here.
As a veteran, more than honored to be part of that.
Thank you, Council.
Okay. So I'd like to add those present, because I know he was a good friend to all of us. So on the amendment, I move to amend it to add the other individuals.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Councilman McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. President. I also know that Councilor DeFlorio wanted to be added.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, no, she is.
She's already on there.
Okay, she is already on this. She had spoken to me about this. I again thank Councilor Capone. He had brought this to our attention, and it's well-deserved and well-honored. I'd ask that a Veterans Commissioner respond to us in 2 weeks with a response to let us know how we proceed forward with getting this done. If we can make that as a part of the motion.
And that's excellent. I was going to ask that we refer this as amended to the Office of Veteran Services and to the mayor's office and request a response for our next meeting.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Councilman Della Sol, sorry.
I'd like to wish our youngest member here a happy birthday. Mike McLaughlin.
He's older than Councilman DePiero?
Yes. Oh, that's,
Sorry,
Second youngest? Our youngest without glasses.
Second
Okay.
youngest, to clarify.
Happy birthday, Counselor. Okay. And one one other thing before we adjourn, I'd like to wish the residents of Everett a happy thanks and safe Thanksgiving. We'll be meeting the weekend, the Monday after that. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.